Hello, Galaxy. I'm Chris Pirillo, and you've tuned in to another not-so-live but recorded live edition of the Locker Gnome Digital Review, or TLDR for short. That's ironic because we tend to talk a lot. We? Who are we? We are the Royal We, a group of geeks that hang out every day on Twitch, and one night a week we record this podcast very much in the spirit of TechTV. You remember TechTV? Well, I've been wanting to bring it back in some way, shape, or form.
One in the world. And you can see the tracks go this way. And it's really cool because it records much more accurately than...
The thing that I learned in all the years that people have reminisced about TechTV in my time on there for a couple of years that I was there, the thing that stood out the most, the biggest value of TechTV wasn't necessarily the tech topics. Yes, that brought us together for sure, but it was the camaraderie. It was the conversation. It's that you were watching friends geek out about one thing or another.
Good day, gentlemen. Allow me to introduce ourselves. I am Professor Percy. This is Dr. Marmalade.
At your service.
And this is Lord Reginald.
Charmed.
You guys talk funny. Say more words.
What we're doing here is very much in that spirit, very casual, but also calculated. And so this is not just me. Well, I mean, obviously I am just me, Chris Pirillo, but I'm joined with an array of characters, a cast of characters. Tonight we've got Glendon 3D. We also have Mystery Goat. We have Toxic Doom and Josh, the Mac and Josh. And anybody is welcome to join the podcast. You might be thinking, well, how do I become a part of it? You can. Just pop over to the Twitch feed, live.pirillo.com. You can join the Discord server. It's free. And we'll rotate people in and out, ad hoc, bring in guests and make it fun. But the whole idea is just to capture the fun that we normally... Do you need a drink there, Glendon?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was on a roll, and you don't have a cough button? Okay.
I've beat him by 3 times already.
So, yeah. So maybe, are we doing too much camaraderie up front? So here's I knew it. I'm a horrible producer. Here's the idea. The format of the show, we're going to begin introducing one another, or I guess we're each going to introduce ourselves. We're going to showcase a new discovery this week, hardware, software, service, tip, trick, whatever. And then we're going to go around again, and we're going to share a top 10 list of sorts with you. So this is going to be a very dense information stream. Education, entertainment, empowerment. It's all the E's. And I would say this is relatively easy to do, but let me tell you, coordinating schedules is kind of tricky. So thank you. If you like this effort and want to see this happen continuously for supporting it, and I hope to have more information on being able to go to the community for investment, small-time investment, like $50 on up, and you can actually... We're working on a way for you to invest in the future of Locker Gnome. I'm going to say in the spirit of TechTV. That is where it is in my head. So I am Chris Pirillo, and so I'll kick things off as the host. I should begin with the beer that I'm drinking. Almost one of my favorite social platforms these days, Mastodon, although this is Mastodon, and they had it on sale. This is from the Ninkasi Brewing Company, out of Oregon. I actually have one of their Space Dust beers that has actual space dust in it. It's really good. The only thing that's not great about it is the only cup that I could find had candy corn on it, which is kind of annoying, but it's got Grogu.
He loves it.
That's it. We're done. This is going to be the shortest podcast ever. I'm learning so much about y'all. Seriously. How could we not? This is like saying, I love pineapple on pizza. This is just, our relationship has changed.
That's
dynamic.
That's not, don't go there. That's not right.
Really? So we're allies. Wait, hang on. Are there any pineapple on pizza fans in the crowd?
John?
Okay with it.
Oh, come on. Yeah, but you're okay with iOS. So I think it's true. Your opinion has been tainted. You've been helping people actually with their problems, at least with the Apple Watch. So Josh actually shares content in his social feeds, or at least has in the past. And so we're going to try to inspire him to do more content, because that's what the world needs more.
That's what I need. I need inspiration big time, because otherwise
you're drinking
right
it
off the rails.
Liquid inspiration right there.
That's right.
Are you a lightweight tonight? This is an Imperial, yeah? Yeah, an Imperial cold IPA. Why would you drink a warm IPA? I don't know. I don't like warm beer. I was going to show you. This is the beer I'm drinking. So if you're wondering, why is that funny?
I pulled mine from the tap.
Your beer, that looks more like vodka.
Wow. It's water.
I hear you, man. That's dangerous. You get all the parasites and everything that come with it.
That's all right. My body's used to it now. They kind of need it.
I'm warning everybody. I should have gone to water, honestly. I should have followed your path because I am tired. I am dead tired. Oh my God. So beer is going to put me to sleep. So if like you see in like the middle of the stream, right? Stay tuned. Chris might very well crash. Or if you see my eyes like drooping, it's not the beer so much as it's the beer exacerbating me being very tired. Josh and I here were up very, very early to pre-order the Bamboo Labs A1 Mini, which I'm going to be using on my desk as a 3D printer. I love 3D printing. I cannot imagine life without 3D printing from this point forward until I die. And I may even 3D print when I die. I don't know. I guess your fingernails kind of grow a little longer after you're dead. So that's kind of like 3D printing, right? Macabre thought for everybody.
Sure.
Why not? So we stayed up, we got up early at 5 a.m, and I was having a rough night of sleep anyway. So we've got some new hardware coming down the pipe, but that's not what I wanted to talk. That's not the beer, the hardware pre-order, not even what I wanted to talk about. That was just a preamble to what I wanted to talk about. This is what I wanted to talk about. Glendon actually made the recommendation a few months ago. I had, if you remember, years ago, I had the Tenorion, I think it was Yamaha Tenorion, a musical instrument where you could like press buttons on a grid and then it made it played MIDI music on the actual instrument. And I found that the knob wasn't very responsive. I couldn't figure out, what was going on. Glendon right here immediately recommended this Deoxite. Now this is a product I've never even heard of. Maybe this shouldn't be my feature because I'm not sure I can explain it half as well as Glendon could. But I'll punt to you here when I'm done, Glendon, just if only to finish. But if you have electronics that have like corrosion or they're not working right, you can spray a little bit of this on there and then they start working magically again. I'm not going to say it's like a silicone spray. Is it a silicone spray? I don't know. It's a D series. So I avoided A, B, and C, but it is also extremely flammable. Just FYI.
Yes.
So cleaner audio, clearer video, reliable data. So apparently it is a lubricant. If you're a geek, this is the lube you need. Oh. Well, okay, so I'm glad. This is it. This is where I was leading in. You didn't even know, or did you know? Did you know that's where I was going with this? Because I bought recently like half off, 30% off on Amazon. I shared that link on social, but I got the Magic Keyboard with the Touch ID, which has been nice because that was a previous upgrade. I spilled beer. You got to watch out with me and beer. I spilled beer like 2 weeks after I got it, guys. And it knocked out, well, it didn't really knock out, but it made the one of the cursor keys and the 0 and key on the numpad sticky. So for about a month or so, I was living with it. And every morning I'd come in and be like, click, click. I'm like, this is not right. And finally I decided, even though it didn't say dissolves beer, I sprayed some Deoxite on it. This is Deoxite D5 in case there are different variants. Sprayed it on that area, wiped it off. Initially, it felt really mushy. I got worried, left it overnight, came back good as new. So if you've ever spilled something on your keyboard, and let's face it, if you have a keyboard, you probably spilled something on it. And while we're at it, why don't you go ahead and do this with your keyboard? Why don't you just go ahead, shake out all that crap that's in there. Ugh. Actually, it's a new keyboard, so it didn't have much crap.
But Josh fell out of a keyboard.
I'm telling you, you got to watch out.
I'm smacking it over my head.
In the crevices, that's where they are.
I don't know if it helped the keyboard, but I think it shook something else loose in there.
Oh, well, I guess it did. Wait,
still not as bad as the armchair cheese that you get on office chairs.
I see. I don't have armchair for a reason. Yeah, for a big reason.
I don't have it on mine right now, I promise. But I have seen it many times. We've all seen it many times.
You're not speaking from experience at all. Deoxite will get rid of that armchair cheese. I bet. You spray the cheese away. It's not spray cheese. Okay, so Glendon, did I get that right? Did I explain like what it basically dissolves gunk?
Yeah, it's like dust, debris, things like that. Just over time, it lubricates and cleans both. So a lot of the first time I heard about it was like on old stereo equipment, like the adjustment pots that are on it. Whenever you have one that's aged, a lot of times you'll hear the volume going in and out, up and down. Just spray it in there. That's where I first learned about it.
And it worked like a charm. I'm going to keep it here with me all the time. And I'm hearing an echo. Am I the only one here? It had to happen. We're doing a recording. It's just, y'all, this is like what happens. See, you didn't hear enough of me the first time around. Ah, there we go. It has been, so now you only get one of me. Sorry, everybody, not to disappoint. It's what you get. Bullet dodged.
I don't think we can move too.
I wouldn't.
I have also used the Deoxite on, to what Glendon said, some old vintage audio equipment, especially arcades where they have the volume potentiometer on the inside to set the volume. You just spray that, soak it obviously while the machine is off, and you just work the potentiometer off or on and off or up and down. You just get rid of the oxidation, and it allows that electrical contact to be cleaned. You can use it on automotive connections too. If you've got anything with corrosion, you can clean it up and spray that, and it cleans up the end. It works really good.
Yeah. Like it said, it's good for oxidation. I mean, it's right in the name, Deoxite. So
I probably could have used that a long time ago. I bought a GameCube eBay years ago when it was still relevant, right? And so I got it used, and the moment I had it, it worked fine. But there was some of the buttons were really sticky. The reset button and the power button were both really sticky. And I used
I don't want to know why. You don't want to know why they were sticky, what? Right?
A few years later, I finally opened it up, finally cleaned it. I swear someone like spilt pop in there or something, like Coke or Pepsi, because there was this dark caramel colored liquid all over the place in there. I'm surprised the thing actually worked if you spilt a drink in there, but I probably could use that stuff.
Coke or Pepsi, not some other organic substance.
If things turn brown like that, I worry for his health.
I would as well.
Yeah.
That's all I had for my initial introduction. Hi, I'm Chris Pirillo, the host of this particular stream, and I'll pass it on. We're going in order. Although I should note too, didn't introduce one of the streams in this feed, Macooter. Got to talk about Macooter now. I love talking about Macooter. Put my sorry, I said my cooter. That's not right. It's Macooter, MC Cooter. He streams vintage commercials, and so he brought a vintage commercial feed in here again. I just think it's kind of fun watching, tripping down, memory lane. 8 gig is modern. 8 megabyte. God, I did it again. 8 megabyte memory lane. Memory
that you had.
Wow, this is really good beer.
We're downhill fast.
Seriously.
This might be a really short or a really long podcast.
Wow.
If he falls asleep, what do? We just sit here and ramble, or we just all disperse?
So.
If I get punch drunk, because it could happen. I did it in that 18 hours live programming. I wasn't drunk at the time, but it felt like it. Let me tell you.
See, Chris, this is how you get canceled.
Oh, I've been canceled so many times. It's not even funny. I collect them like Star Wars figures, cancellations.
I like to think of it more as postponed.
Fair enough.
Delayed.
Yeah.
All right. I can do that. I'm better off in a delay. That's for sure. So that Macooter's doing the old commercials, and I'm going to pass it now to the virtual baton, to Glendon, who has, I think he's rivaled my setup here. He's got all his 3D printing stuff behind
him. You guys had timed that better, you could have pushed a baton off camera, and then Glendon could have.
You could 3D print one, and then we could just have a baton that gets faster on the stream.
Hang on. Yo,
it's like last time when I said, "Can we just announce stuff?" and you just pull it out of nowhere. You pulled out an ST.
It's very dark. I can imagine.
Yeah, I believe it was in his keyboard actually.
Wow.
Ooh.
That Deoxite works wonders.
Deoxite really fixed your keyboard.
Industrial strength.
What's in there? A sword.
Oh man. Yeah, it's a Lego 3D printing world. Ended up uploading this model for free. The Lego piece that's obviously enlarged, that's collapsible. So here, this is the ready. Are you gonna grab it, Glendon? You ready? Here you go. Totally seamless.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Look at those effects. Look at that.
Way to drop the baton.
Thanks for the passing of the baton there.
Just Photoshop that in or something.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah. Figure it out. We'll fix it in post. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
What do you got for us this week?
This week, I decided to try to use my DSLR camera for streaming. And what I did was figure out that once you hook it up USB with the Sony software, I have a Sony a6400, it's not allowing it to perform at its highest frames per second that it should be getting. based on the settings of the camera. So what I did was, for Chris's advice, see if I could use my capture card to help boost the performance on the camera. So long story short, got a micro HDMI that plugs into the camera, into the capture card, which goes into the computer, and bam, I have 60 as a choice. I have 120. So that's my discovery of the week. And what it's done is it's given me the ability to use a nicer camera for a better image. So
You look clean.
Mm-hmm. The color is much more crisp.
Crispy. Yeah. No, I guess, so it's not exactly a full beard club, just 2 beards in this stream right now. Not enough facial. I shaved for this.
I did not.
I clearly see that.
Tomorrow
Very much
shave
so.
day for me.
You
Glendon
have
actually
shave
shaved
days?
this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
you may want
just
to.
came back.
You shaved this morning. It grows that fast.
That fast.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't
That's
say
impressive.
where he shaved.
I did not.
How's that for a visual, everybody? So the only thing that I forgot to do, yes, thank you. I wanted to mention the top 10 that I was going to come back to, and then Glendon, I want to ask your top 10 because we're going to loop back. I'm going to be talking about the 10 things you absolutely need to know about the Pixel 8 Pro before you get it. Like that's the top 10 I'm going to be covering. Glendon, what top 10 are you going to be covering when we loop back to you?
I'm going to be covering top 10 reasons and tips for purchasing a monitor. You could for either professional work or gaming.
Okay, fair enough. We'll pop over to Josh now. I'd say a noob, but let's face it, this is only the second TLDR reboot podcast that we've recorded, so everyone's a noob, including myself.
Well, he's our podcast expert anyway.
Well, kind of, yeah, actually, and I think you plan on covering that as part of your top 10. But what do you got to showcase for us this week?
So, okay, as far as my discovery, it's kind of an iOS fix or Apple Watch OS fix for something that's been broken for a lot of people ever since Watch OS 10 came out. What's really funny about this is I ran the beta of Watch OS the entire time and had 0 bugs, like 0 actual bugs that were happening. It was pretty smooth up until the release, and then they did a 0.1 release or something, and then it broke the weather complication. So if your weather actually, I want to do this in true Chris Pirillo style with his videos. Okay, here. Have you had an issue with your Apple Watch complication? Because if you have, I've had an issue with it. Here's how to fix it. It's okay. Apple, of course, in their infinite wisdom, can't do anything right. So here's how you have to do it. You have to do it this crazy, janky way that's terrible for everybody.
That's too good.
There's an echo in here. I swear to God. I thought we only had one Chris Pirillo.
He's coming for your job, Chris.
All right.
Wow.
You did mess up a little bit. You didn't take 10 takes.
I would have, for sure. I mean, I'm this is all live to tape right here. I don't have a chance to. So I actually do have a fix for this, by the way, if you're interested in knowing, and it's a little bit of voodoo in how to do it. Apple actually released a support document online that shows or illustrates how you're supposed to fix this issue, because of course they don't just do an update that would just fix it out of the box. No, you got to do a thing where you jump through all these hoops. So basically it involves going to your settings for your Apple Watch and changing the location from never allow back to whatever your setting was. That toggle is what's supposed to actually do it. If that doesn't work, restart your watch, restart your phone. You might actually have to reset all of your location and privacy settings, which isn't resetting your whole phone. It's just resetting those settings from a system-wide standpoint. That is supposed to fix it, but it's crazy. It's like it's a janky fix for a janky problem.
Yeah, are you really going to get me started on jank and iOS and Apple products and software? Because I got nothing but time on my hands and, well, enough beer to get me through. Oh, man, this is just, to me, it's egregious. Apple has, this is it. I'm getting on my soapbox, and I don't even have a soapbox.
You got them started.
I know.
Apple, they lost the script. The software quality control, the fact that you had to figure this out. Remember the Apple slogan, the old Apple slogan, "It just works."
Mm-hmm.
It no longer works. I mean, that's testament. The fact that I watched what was it, yesterday, the day before, Scott Hanselman, who is not a noob. Like, he's if you look in the dictionary, what is an antonym of a noob? It'd be Scott Hanselman's picture right there. The guy's a consummate geek. He couldn't figure it out. So this glitch, this to me this is iOS in a nutshell. It's not one thing. It's death by 1,000 cuts. That's just one more thing. And I'm not, hey, and Josh, I'm not saying don't get an Apple Watch. I'm not. Hey, if that's your thing, it's your money, you make that decision. All I'm saying is that's what keeps me from having the ability to be able to get that watch. Knowing, well, the hardware looks great. Who cares about the hardware if the software's so freaking glitchy? And I'm not talking about crashes. That's not a crash. It's a bug that Apple is clearly not paying attention to, because Apple, they've got a great CEO, fantastic CEO, have zero problems with Tim Cook, but he's not a product guy at all. He's not a software guy at all. He's a supply chain guy, and it works very well. Apple makes a lot of money, but I don't care that Apple makes a lot of money when I just want my damn watch to work.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to step off my soapbox.
So wait,
Sorry,
before we move on, though, I just want to be clear about this fix. If you go into your iPhone settings, it's your iPhone settings, go to privacy and security. Then you need to go to weather. And location services. I missed a step. Privacy and security, then location services. Then you go to weather. Then you tap never for allow location access. And then you go back to whatever setting you had before. That's supposed to be the thing that fixes.
So intuitive. Apple, man, I tell you, it's the most intuitive products. Man, can't recommend that enough. I swear to God. People get mad at me when I call it out. Like, the Emperor has no clothes, and then they get mad at me. I'm like, I didn't develop that. That's not me.
But, great fodder for videos for me to make on TikTok and share around, if I can find enough crazy, weird fixes for stupid problems.
There are plenty of them if you're in Apple's camp, for sure. Plenty to be had. So, Josh, what top 10 are you going to be sharing today?
Oh, so my top 10 is a totally different subject. That was just something that I have seen so many people dealing with that I had to address. My actual topic is how to improve your podcast audio, which is even more ironic because the minute you started this podcast just earlier, all of my audio gear just conked out. Just everything died. And so I've been spending in the background here. If you see me on video, I'm not sure how this gets released. You'll see me like all flustered trying to get this all back up and running. But that being said, I still have a lot of great tips. You don't have to have my exact setup, which clearly, might be a little problematic, but we'll get there. I have 10 tips that should be good for anybody to use.
Better than mine. I tell you, I'm worried that my audio is not going to come out fine for this video. I'll be honest. Like, I've been wrestling and I've been using a Windows machine, but I'm thinking that when an M3 Mac Mini is released, I may end up switching over to Mac OS, because Windows is good. I don't want to get into that right now, but I feel Mac OS is a little less, why did this setting changey?
Right.
For the lack of a better way of explaining it. Thank you, Josh. We'll come back to you. Toxic, a.k.a. Toxic Doom. Brad,
Yes.
What discovery you got for this week?
So this is a recent purchase of mine. It is the Stellar Xbox HD Plus. It is actually going into my original Xbox up there. I had ordered this actually about a month ago, and it finally got here. It was on back order. But I wanted to actually kind of bring life back into my old system. There's a few issues with it that I'm going to address, like the disk drive not working. And with this chip, it has a custom OS built into it. So you've got to dissect the Xbox, install it. It also comes with the HDMI upgrade from the same company. And it has a custom OS, like I said, with the ability to flash different software dashboards on the original Xbox. It allows you to upgrade the hard drive from the original 8 gig IDE drive that's in there to a modern SSD. You could go up to over a terabyte if you'd like. It allows you to play ISO files, so the game discs that you have, you can copy to the hard drive and play those directly from the hard drive, which obviously improves loading times. You can increase the output of 480p games to 720p, or if they're 1080p games, it allows that resolution to just pass through digitally. You can also play the ISO files of your games onto a NAS. It's not a currently supported feature, but it's coming down the line. So obviously it allows software update over the inboard Ethernet on the motherboard. And what that'll do is if you have a NAS system or a network attached storage, you can then store your library of games remotely and you just load them over the network, which is very cool. This is the first time I've ever personally seen that in a mod chip. Again, I'm only touching on a few features here, but you can actually play online with the original Xbox Live feature set through the platform Insignia. It's a third-party company, or I should say a third-party group that allows you to connect your original Xbox online and play like you're playing original Xbox Live. And then one of the cooler features is that it'll allow you to use the Xbox One, not this one, but the Xbox One, wireless controllers with it. There will be a dongle that you can plug in, just the USB dongle that comes with these controllers for some Windows machines. And you can have 4-player wireless controllers built into it. So I'm going to be installing that someday once the weather kind of turns a little crappy. I'll be installing this on stream. It's a lot of tedious soldering, but that is the current tech piece that I'm showing off today.
That's for the original Xbox.
The original Xbox. It came out a little over 20 years ago.
I see a lot of original Xbox games on disc, of course, thrifting. Mm-hmm. It's still, they're still out there. I remember selling a stack to GameStop, and I saved a few because they wanted they wanted nothing for everything. But I ended up holding on to a few of the original Xbox games, including the ones that were released by Burger King. I just thought they were kind of neat, the promotional discs. But I don't know if I'm going to ever boot up another original Xbox. And I still have an operational Xbox 360 acting as a DVD player in a media center that rarely, if ever, gets used with my original HD TV, sponsored by Microsoft, years ago when I was doing the Gnomedex Tech Conference in Seattle. That's Panasonic. It's got plasma and everything, but I've just seen no need to upgrade that entertainment console, the entertainment option. So I still have an operational 360, but no original Xbox today.
So mine actually has a common issue. Mine's the first generation that came out, and when you turn it on, the lights come on just fine, but you get a black screen. It's a BIOS failure. So there's actually a way that you can fix that on these versions of Xboxes, where you install an extra wire to basically force it to a backup BIOS. So I'll be doing that on stream as well. But
you could effectively, if you were thrifting, and I recommend thrifting, it's so much fun. Find an original Xbox, even right there, even with stock firmware, and end up getting this and getting a pretty good upgrade. How much did that run you?
It's not the cheapest thing. The full pack, which has the mod chip plus the HDMI upgrade, that runs you, I believe it was a little over $150. So it's not cheap, but the fact is that you get native HDMI output with upscaling, and it works really, really well. It's probably one of the best ones, if not the best on the market right now. That's not extra add-ons. It's direct solder. Plus the extra features that it includes, right? So you can not only back up your game to the hard drive that's on the system, but again, also use a network-attached storage device that's on your network. So you might not even have to mess with the internal hardware.
But when you talk about ripping ISOs, do you do that natively? Do you do that like on system? So you just insert the disk and then that's it?
Yeah, on the modded dashboard, there's the option to copy the actual game disk to the hard drive, and it saves it as a XBE file. The XBE file is the native executable for Xbox.
See, I'm still waiting to figure out, I guess, how to or who to talk to get my CRT replaced on my main machine, my cabinet that's been running for years. A capacitor in the monitor on the CRT is blown, and nobody seems to repair CRTs anymore. But I need to like get that overhauled, stem to stern. So that's as close to retro gaming as I get. Is the old PC, the Windows XP Service Pack 2 PC. It's not connecting to the internet in the main cabinet. Stuck with not being a hardware guy. And you, by the way, for whatever it's worth, Toxic, you lost me at solder.
Well, I'll say I'm not an expert, and that's one thing I wanted to emphasize. This is not like soldering a capacitor on a motherboard where the leads or the holes are going to be very big. This is going to be closer to almost chipset level where the pins are very close together. And if you bridge some of those pins and you turn on the system, you can fry it. So I'm going to buy a new soldering setup and probably get, a lens so that way I could see a little bit bigger on what I'm doing. And I'll check the leads with my oscilloscope or my voltmeter or whatever it may be and make sure that the leads are good. But if you're not confident in doing even the HDMI upgrade, you can run just the chipset itself, which literally just plugs into a jumper on the motherboard. It's pretty much as solderless as you can get. There is some solder involved, but it's very beginner-esque. So if anybody's interested in going that route and modifying and updating their system, that's an easy way to do it.
It sounds like
I'll just pay you to do mine.
We'll see how this one goes.
I'm a DI buyer, man. I'll let someone else do it. I'm like, yeah, I'll pay the extra if I really want it, because otherwise I will screw it up. Guaranteed.
There are people that you can send, if you could just send in your Xbox, you could send your Xbox and the chipset, the mod chip indirectly. There's people that are on eBay that'll do that. So
at first you're going to say there are people that screw it up. There
definitely are people that screw it up.
Yes.
I'll screw it up for free. I'll screw it up for free. I won't even charge you.
Wow.
It's a bargain.
DI buyer. I love that so much.
I'm a massive DI buyer. What do you have for a top 10 this week, Toxic?
Yeah, so tonight I'm going to be talking about what you need to know before getting a VPN. So it's going to be 5 pros and 5 cons of VPNs.
That's a good outline because you see them advertised here, there, and wherever, and so many options, so many things to consider. So that should be a pretty good breakdown. Now, Mystery Goat, thank you, Brad. Mystery Goat has something that happens on these evenings, so he's probably going to be dropping out at some point here in the course of this recording. But that's why we're going to go with you, Mystery Goat, for your discovery, and then roll directly into your top 10.
Yep. So my discovery is not new, but you said it was okay. So
yeah, I mean, it's something for you. It's new for you, or it's a thing that is fresh in your mind, or whatever. That's the idea.
Oh. So I thought this would be fun for everyone to see. Do you guys? I'm sure you guys have heard of Nano Leaf. You see a lot of streamers with them. They're these little multicolored lights that will be behind them on the wall. And can be squares or triangles, and they can put them in different patterns in their module. I think they can react to music or something, however you had them set up. But anyway, so I just thought you guys would enjoy seeing this. This is kind of where it all started. So this is Nano Leaf. This is the Nano Leaf Bloom specifically. And what they did was they put out a Kickstarter a number of years ago, mid 2010s. So what it was is it's their way of trying to take LED bulbs and make them omnidirectional. Around that time, most LED bulbs pretty much just shot in one direction. Now it gave the illusion of it kind of going everywhere. But if you looked at the bulbs at the time, they're basically kind of like only this much, the top area around it was the light, and it just shined out through the top. So what they did was they put a bulb like this, it's kind of folded up. It's really interesting how they did it, but they have LEDs all around it. And it gives you omnidirectional light through LED. And I'm actually using it right now. It's in this room right now that I'm using. The fun part is that, so they had 2 Kickstarters. One just had the introduce the bulb. Excuse me. And the second one they did about a year or so later, called the Nano Leaf Bloom. And what this does is it actually is a dimming bulb without having to have any kind of special equipment or even a dimmer switch. And how it works is you turn it on and it will slowly rise in light level until it reaches its max output. As it's rising up, you can flip the switch on and off and on really quickly, and it will lock it at that light setting. It's a dimmable light bulb without having to, like I said, have to have a dimmer switch, any other special hardware. And I'm, like I said, I'm using it right now in this room, using my bedroom. It's really convenient just to flip it on real quick, flip it off and on real quickly again, and then lock it at a certain light setting. In fact, the light setting that's out right now, I have it at its max. I never have it in here, this bright in here. It's quite dim when I use it. I found it very useful over the years. Uses less electricity, of course. Doesn't have to have as big of a light output also. If anyone trying to look for these, I looked on their website and it says they're discontinued. So these don't exist anymore, except for in the wild. I actually, for the blooms, I'm using 2 of them right now, and I have 2 more that I have not used. This has actually been sitting in a box. So, but anyway, I thought you guys might find that interesting, especially for something that if you go on Twitch or you watch a lot of streamers, you'll see they're all over the place. As far as I know, that's where they started.
Yeah, I needed to probably have lighting installed in my cabinets, or cabinets? No, these aren't really. Well, I got a couple cabinets, but bookshelves with no books on them. What would you call these things? Shelves? Yeah, these are just what I've got behind me. I just got it cheap on Amazon. I think these light bars. You can change the colors on them, and they're magnetized on the back. So I just have the magnets basically stuck. If watch it drop. Oh crap. Oh,
just
no.
pass it to Glendon.
It's so bad. I lost the other side of it. Crap. This is why you don't do demos live, people. All right, hang on. It's got to be.
This is like TechTV.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Records much more accurately than...
We had a perfect handoff that time, too. That was seamless.
Was it?
Yeah, that was perfect.
Was it seamless there?
It was seamless. That was like that's a movie moment.
It's a thing now, man. I'm telling you.
Also,
Special effects.
Anyone looking for Nano Leaf, Chris, they have a array of products on their website. Like I said, I just looked at them. Ton of smart products, strips, different types of light configurations, those wall panels, socket lights. Evidently, Josh has a few of them.
I'm using those strips behind me right now.
Nice.
Yeah. Here's my. Are those strips AC adapter or are they battery powered or USB?
They're AC. They're adapter. They're power.
Okay, but here my issue is I don't want to drill holes in my shelves. That's why they're just like you take them out. And granted, I have to recharge the batteries frequently enough, but there's no wiring on the shelves behind me or through the shelves because it would just add up. I have too many shelves, I guess, in order to illuminate everything. That's why I went with what I went with here behind.
Right. That makes sense. I was kind of wondering how people tackle that kind of situation because I want to light more things, but I'm also kind of thinking, well, I don't want to have wires going everywhere. I don't have outlets every 2 inches.
It just went back. I mean, it's not the most convenient in the sense of you need to. I've got rechargeable batteries in them, and they generally will die. Like the lighting devices themselves will die because the battery power drain is roughly the same time. So that hasn't been too much of an impediment. Although many of the batteries I've had to cycle out because the charging cycle, they're done. Like you can only recharge so many times before they lose their what would you call it? Capacity? Mm-hmm. Is that right terminology?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, the ability to hold the charge. Yeah. Clearly, I'm an electrician expert. That was me making up a word. Electrician.
That was good. I couldn't tell it was made up. So
really, okay.
Yeah,
that's a beer word if I've ever heard one.
It's a beer word.
You're electrician. You gotta stick it in the holes. There are 3 holes. Stick it in.
That's direct. That's direct current, right, Chris? That's how that works.
DC,
Direct.
baby. I'm in the other Washington. Actually, I'm not in the DC. I'm in the not DC Washington.
Right.
I know
Washington AC.
Let me tell you. In the summer, let me tell you, you need to run the AC out here, and it didn't used to be that way in Seattle, but it is now. I've always been fascinated with LEDs, going all the way back to even when I was recording video off of Ustream for the YouTube channel and having LED light strips on top of my hutch. And I remember bringing the laptop that I had, the MacBook, up on top of the hutch to show people, here's where I've got my light strips. And I still have off to the side, you can see them, the ticks clock. Some people stop by, do you still have those lights that, yeah, they're right there. Right? Oh, ow. Did you hear that? Ow.
It's a rough night. It's a rough night.
Ow.
You gotta be careful not to hurt yourself podcasting. That's another one of the tips. Gotta be real careful. You have to wear the protective gear.
OSHA's coming.
I'm gonna have to.
Next week, Chris is gonna have the helmet.
I wear a helmet
Dude,
every time
going
I
there.
podcast.
I got the helmet now.
See, you just have to say something. It's right next to it. Last week it was the SP. This week it was okay. Here we go.
Okay, look at the helmet. I'm not gonna be wrong. It'll ruin.
That's OSHA approved.
It is. There's a little bit of blood in here too from the last time it scraped me.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, I'm always interested in new lighting options, if only, to have more illumination. But the problem I have had, and if anybody has seen any of my recent room tours, and I'll often, post these things on Instagram, TikTok, X, aka Twitter. Sorry, Elon. Calling it X is just stupid. It's Twitter. Let's face it. And I'm only going to say that just to piss you off, because I know he's listening. Clearly, Elon.
He's our biggest fan.
Huge. He pays $8 a month to be a member in this channel.
You better be careful, Chris, because Elon could possibly be the one to help bring it back TechTV.
I would be shocked if that happened. But the investment round will be open for everybody. However, that's going to work out. We
change the name to XTV.
Oh God, that'd be even worse than pivoting to G. See that's where they screwed up. I'm gonna get on my soapbox. I'm gonna say, TechTV. I don't own the rights to the name, clearly, or if it wasn't clear, it's clear. I don't, but I was there, and people remember that it holds a special place in their hearts. And then G4 came. Well, I'm sorry, G4 didn't come along. All those assets, all the IP basically rolled into G4. And it became something completely different. I was not a part of G4 at all in any way, shape, or form. But where I feel the G4 reboot may have missed the mark is not because of the zeal, not because of what they were trying to do, not because of how they realized there was a value in doing something that at one point was different, trying to bring that into the modern era. I feel that was the right decision to make, because you can't, and this is where it gets kind of, a little nostalgic. You can't bring back, or you can't resurrect a 20-plus-year-old television network and expect it to be relevant today. You have to do things differently. And this is where I feel like if G4 would have taken the approach of community investment, and not crowdfunding is the wrong word, but this is where I've learned about these new business models, specifically for like YouTubers and streamers, where you could lay out a plan, say, hey, here's what we want to do, and here's what we're going to do. Here's who we're going to need. This is how much it might cost us. This is the investment we need, and here's your potential ROI. You lay all that out. You let people buy into that at $50, $100, whatever it happens to be, $50 and up. I think $50 is the baseline. Is the SEC? Is that the government entity that regulates? You give them a baseline. But if you let the community buy into that vision, they have ownership. And this is, honestly, maybe this is bigger picture. I feel that's going to play in, I'm sorry, I'm on a big soapbox here. I feel it's going to play into the future, if it works well, the future growth of channels as almost like a next iteration of what those channels can be. Because right now that model is creator creates content, channel creates content, people consume, people watch, people experience. And there's a value in that. Certainly people create that, the creators create that value. But when there's an opportunity to actually invest in and buy into that value and believe in that vision and the ability to execute that vision, suddenly there is a return. That's what an investment is. So if G4 would have taken the approach of saying, this is what we want to do, and you can be an investor, small time. We're not talking like VCs, like people with like wads of dough. Like someone's got, an extra 50 to spare or 100 to spare, right? Not certainly something that's going to break the bank. You throw it in, they buy into it. Then they're a part of it, and they can help guide it, and they can help make it be something that it had an opportunity to be. And so, I'm not going to woulda, shoulda, coulda it. I mean, obviously I wasn't in charge of that. I was not in charge of TechTV, not even close. I feel like being able to bring the community or audience into the actual experience itself, it's always been I feel top of mind for me because I mean, I like integrating chat. I like interacting with people. I like making it more cohesive, rather than just a talking head, because everyone's doing a talking head. But what about bringing more people into the fold? So anyway, how the hell did I get off on that topic? Where the hell did that come from?
You climbed
That was
too
a good
many
podcast.
steps up the box.
That was a good podcast, everyone. See you guys next week.
Yeah, no, that's really good beer.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
This is really good beer. But I genuinely, it is really good beer.
Oh, that's good.
I ain't gonna lie, because I mean, I'd say otherwise I wouldn't be drinking it. Let's face it, I'd still be drinking it even if it was bad beer.
I meant to add a clarification for mine. This is not beer. This is coffee. I was polishing off that. I do have a beer with me, but I have not opened it yet. So
See, he waits till after the stream to drink his beer.
Well, that's what makes him a professional.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be open during the stream, I guarantee it.
Especially at the rate I'm going. So I don't know how I got off on that side topic, but it felt natural at the time. I just kind of went with it.
That was very natural. It was really natural. It was so natural, Chris. It was great.
So basically, everyone, stay tuned for TechX, sponsored by Elon Musk, coming soon.
Oh my God! You know what? We laugh, but it's coming. It's coming. So on that note, and I'm not going to sing not that kind of note. Mr. Goat, you do have stuff that's that you have planned this on this particular evening. This is really good beer.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I have.
roll...
I have something. Yes.
Okay.
I have something.
You have a top 10, and this is general. It could be 11. It could be 9. No one's going to sit there with a clipboard.
Well, now you tell me. As I was sitting there the other day going, I have 9 tips. I'm trying to find one more.
ChatGPT. It's going to take over everything, man.
Committed.
Yeah.
I'm counting, by the way.
So there you go. So at least one person's counting.
Okay.
I got 10. Yeah, I got 10.
So what 10 do you have for us tonight?
So this is 10 tips for PC gaming on a budget. Now this is going to go into some tips on how to upgrade, as well as at the end, I'll talk a little bit about where to find games for a little bit cheaper. And so rolling into it, the first thing you want to talk about is actually building a new PC. Now, I'm not going to go into actually how to build it and everything, but there's a lot of people out there that may be intimidated by using going into PC gaming, and I know a couple of my friends were a little intimidated at it at one point, and eventually they got into it, and they actually love it now. But some of that, too, is also the cost of it. We look at a computer and can go into thousands of dollars, especially if you're building it from scratch. But it really doesn't have to be that expensive. A console new today can be about $500-$600. Going into a brand new PC, you can get it for around $700 to $1,200, depending on what you're buying and how much you need to buy. The benefits of this is that a PC can last longer than a console. And by that, I mean that, as consoles age and they come out with a brand new one, for a while they may make games that are available for both of them, but eventually they're all going to move directly into that brand new console. Whereas PC gaming, as they make games for a new generation of hardware, those games will still work on your PC, even though it's aging, and it may not be able to run it as efficient as it used to. You can still actually play them. You can lower the graphics settings and a handful of other tweaks and still make it work just fine and be able to play it just fine. So it can last longer than a console can. And by that, I can just say that my current PC right now probably comes from mid-2010s-ish. I'm still running, my graphics card is a 1060, so that kind of gives you an idea of how old my hardware is. But it's still running just fine. I play pretty much all the new games that I want to play, and I really don't have much of an issue. And if I do have a little bit of an issue, I can just lower some of the settings and make it work a little bit better for me. So that's a big plus for it. Another one is backwards compatibility, which goes into not just PC games. You can go all the way back and play DOS games. But with emulators, you can go back and play console games too, which a lot of people have gotten into within recent years. And I'm talking from Atari all the way up to, I think right now, the best bet is PlayStation 2, maybe. I think you can do some PlayStation 2. GameCube is definitely a big option for it. and a handful of others. Not that I'm saying you should go out and pirate a bunch of games or anything like that, but they are there. And then if you have the games yourself, which I have a hefty games collection. I know Glendon does as well. If you own the game, the cartridge itself, it is actually perfectly legal for you to own a digital copy of it. They've gotten through, other means. So that's just another good reason for it. There's also modding. There's also, my personal favorite is free online play. So as PlayStation, Xbox, even Nintendo requires you to pay a monthly fee in order to play multiplayer online, PC has never had that. Microsoft tried at one point, and people fought back so hard against it that they abandoned the idea completely. So everything, unless you're playing an MMO, anything that is multiplayer, Call of Duty, co-op games, sports games that you want to play with your buddies, all that is free to play online. And of course, the big part, which is what we're going to go into here, is upgradable. So as your system ages, as technology increases and these games get better and better and better looking and taking advantage of newer hardware, you can upgrade the PC bit by bit without having to replace the entire thing at one time and lower your costs that way. So before we go into the actual upgrading of the hardware, one of the things that you can do to actually improve the performance, especially if you are on a hefty budget, you really don't want to pay money for hardware right now. One of the things you can do is just try to tweak it just a little bit in order to try to regain the performance that you may have lost over time. The best way to do that is first and foremost to clean it. Even consoles is a good tip for, but for PCs definitely, because we have a lot of fans on there and it's blowing dust and all kinds of other debris. If you have pets, it can blow a lot of pet hair into there. So it's a good idea. Open it up, buy yourself a can or two of compressed air from the store, take it outside carefully, of course, and then blow out all that dust. Get it off of the fans, get it off the heat sinks, get it off all the hardware in there. And you're not going to scrub it. You're not going to make it sparkly, but getting all that dust will help your hardware tremendously, because what dust does is as it cakes on, it traps all that heat. And heat is very dangerous for computer hardware. Of course, airflow, like I said, is very important when you're thinking about heat. So if you don't have very good airflow, get some tips from Google and other sources to find out how you can increase the airflow you see. Where there's more fans, better placement of fans, maybe you just didn't have them configured correctly. It's a good idea to make sure you have good airflow. And I know that from a friend of mine that I gave some of my older hardware to. He wasn't very good in computers, but he, through the help of some friends, he did put the components I gave to him in a case, got everything working, but he forgot to plug the fan in, and started having a ton of issues. It was just the front fan too, the intake from the front that blows over everything. That heat really shut him down. And of course, and this goes into another part too of PCs don't have to be so technical. Some people like to make them very complicated. And by that, I mean, like friends, when he was trying to use them for tech support, one of his buddies was like, oh, reseat this, take out the RAM, redo the RAM. And at one point he told them to, reseat the processor. It's really easy. You can do it. Now this guy has never touched a computer in his life. And his buddy is telling him to reseat the processor, taking off the heat sink, pulling the processor off, putting it back in, putting everything back on. The dude didn't even have any thermal paste, which he wouldn't even known what to do with that had he even had it. So
is that like toothpaste for your CPU?
I mean, it can be. You can put it on your toothbrush and see what happens. It could clean something out, at least make your mouth a little cooler. Push out some of the heat. Yeah, you can try it. Put it in other places that get really hot. See if it can disperse the heat a little bit.
I'm going to put it all over my pillow at night, so I'm always sleeping on the cool side.
Ooh, that'd be interesting. I'd be really curious to see how that works, actually. Please come back with us with your findings. But anyway, so long story short, as my long story has continued, it was a heat issue with the front fan. I plugged it right in, worked just fine. And so, again, this doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be overly techy. Sometimes it can just be little things here and there. And it's oftentimes we always find that we try to get a little more complicated, and it's always a tiny thing that is the real fix. But good air circulation, and also it's not just the computer itself, but as we're looking to maintain it and try to improve the performance of it, you can also go in and tweak some of your operating system settings. I wouldn't say settings so much because you can get in trouble with some of that, but specifically getting rid of some old programs that you're not using anymore, and really the best part you can do is by preventing programs from starting up that are using resources that you're not using. I don't know how many times I worked on someone's computer and they got, I don't know, 15, 20 programs that are booting up as the computer starts up. Now, a lot of programs like to do that by default, but that can be turned off. But when they do boot up like that, they're using all of the resources on your computer. They're using the processor, using the RAM, and when you're trying to play a game, they're having to share those resources with those other programs all at one time. And that can really hinder your performance as your computer ages. So go through the things that you pop up. You can look at on a Windows PC, lower right-hand corner, little up arrow. You can see a lot of the programs that are on already. Not all of them, but you can get a good idea of what's being running right now and turn those off. And there's a lot of good help tips online that you can find for how to increase the performance of a PC through the operating system like that. But once you get all that done, you still find you need some actual new hardware. Now's the time where you need to identify exactly what is bottlenecking and what needs to be upgraded, because you don't have to upgrade the entire PC. Could just be little things here and there. Good
Thank
first
you.
step.
By the way, hang on, Mr. Goat, not to interrupt. I appreciate that you're turning your head and coughing.
No.
Usually you have to go to the doctor to do that, but look at this professional. He turns his head and coughs. I don't even need to do the whole groin check at the time.
Well,
I think this podcast is getting out of the gutter. You know what I mean? It just is right back there again.
Just right back in the thick of it.
What are you talking about?
I will say, Chris, you're not seeing what's under the desk. So
admittedly,
that's your desk.
Oh yeah. So where the hell are you?
He can only see under Glendon's desk.
This is good beer.
Is that the title of this podcast?
Yeah.
This is a great beer. I don't know. I keep changing it up there. And I'm done too, by the way. I'm done with the beer. Not done with your tips though.
Oh.
Not done.
Oh, geez.
By the way, just real quick, one of my tips is turn your head and cough too. But
exactly. Just go ahead, turn your head and cough. All the females in the audience are probably going, huh?
Don't worry about
what? Trust me. Turn your head and cough. 2 fingers. Turn your head and cough.
Yeah. I'm used to 2 fingers. It's all right.
It's okay. This is a good beer.
I just started mine. Where are we going tonight, boys?
What's my excuse?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Straight from the tap.
Tap it.
Oh.
So no, he tapped it a little too hard.
Oh, I lost my speakers. Okay.
Oh no, he's gone.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh, he's
I'm
gone.
going to the backup.
He's so frustrated. Well, he did say before the stream though that his camera was overheating or something along those lines.
It's so weird. My stuff just started going haywire too on me. Right as you started the podcast, I was like, "This is just perfect." I'm supposed to be.
No, it's Mercury and Okay, you go, and then I'll go.
Okay. No, you know what? Let's just let Mystery Goat go again.
Okay, it sounds great.
All right.
I went to my backup, so we'll figure it out. I was using my phone for the first time, so we'll figure that out eventually. Where was I?
I have no idea.
I don't know where any of us are.
Where the hell am I? Who are you?
All right, bottlenecking. I was talking about things you can do when you're first upgrading components. First thing you can look through is increasing RAM. Maybe add an SSD if you don't already have one. A lot of people may still have mechanical hard drives. And then just really identifying your bottleneck, whether it is the processor, whether it is the graphics card. So trying to identify those parts will help you first in the long run, and you may find out you may not even need one of the big expensive components. But once you identify what you need, especially if it is a processor or a video card, the thing is that we're talking about budgets here, right? So if you have a very limited budget, then what you're really going to need more than anything is reasonableness in what you can afford and be satisfied with less. Yes, I want a 4090 as well, but I can't afford a 4090. A lot of people can't afford some of these top shelf pieces of hardware. That's okay. You may not even need it. Actually, I will guarantee you probably don't need it. Unless you're doing something like 3D modeling, graphics processing, any of the hardcore stuff, AutoCAD, things like that. That's really pushing your graphics hardware to its limits. It's not something you're going to need for gaming. Probably one of the best things about gaming today, or one of the good aspects about it being focused so much on consoles, is that it's focused on console hardware. That hardware is going to be lesser than the current hardware on PCs. The PS5 and the Xbox Series consoles that came out, almost 5 years ago now? Yeah.
Really? 5? Wow.
Is it about 5? 3 to 5?
I think it's closer to 3.
3? Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, when now we got brand new graphics cards since those consoles came out, those consoles at the time are not using the latest and greatest hardware at that moment because they're being built years in advance. So if you are picking up the top of the line graphics card, or even processor for that matter, and you're just gaming on your computer, it's not going to take advantage of that. So you got all of this hardware that is being basically, and it's wasting money. You can find that you can usually get mid-grade components, especially when it comes to video cards, and be perfectly happy. It'll play everything max settings as you need it. There might be a handful of games here and there that can really take advantage of newer hardware. Of course, we all remember Crysis when it was really pushing the graphics cards at the time. Can your computer play Crysis? I know the remake edition, while the game itself technology has moved well beyond can Crysis run it, the remake has a setting in there called Can It Run Crysis? Which is really supposed to push hardware to its limits. Now, of course, I don't have top-of-the-line hardware, so I don't know exactly how it works or how it looks, but, they're still trying to some degree, but more than likely, most of the games that you're playing out there are not going to be taking advantage of top-shelf hardware.
So hang on, Mr. Good, sorry, not to pause you here.
Go ahead.
You're speaking from practical experience. You're not just speaking from a nebulous list that you found on the internet. This is your life.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like I said, my graphics card is a 1060. That came out mid-2010s, maybe before that. And the stuff I have, the motherboard, the processor, the graphics processor, they're all hand-me-downs from a friend of mine. When they upgraded their computer, they gave me their old stuff. So even when I obtained it, it was not brand new. And you can see where they haven't released especially in NVIDIA, they haven't released a graphics card every single year. But we're in the 40s now. I'm still running 10s, so that can kind of give you a idea of how far I am in the space of when they've made stuff. I'm still running things just fine. I'm playing brand new games, some of them at max settings, some of them I may have to lower just a little bit, but that's okay, and it's all fine with me. I'm also playing on 1080p, so that is another thing to consider too. 4K will really push hardware, especially, and some of the newer games will take advantage of some of the newer hardware that's coming out in graphics cards. But if you're on a budget, just understand you don't have to play in 4K. 1080p looks great. Yeah, 4K looks better. I understand that. It looks crisp. It can give you amazing pictures. But to play the game, You do not have to play in 4K.
Also, you're computer gaming, you're like right in front of your monitor anyway. And if you don't have a monitor bigger than like 27 inches, which is probably, I mean, you're not going to see the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but to be fair, I mean, it's not the length, it's not the width, it's not the girth, it's what you do with it, right? This is what I've been told my entire life. It's not.
Keep telling yourself that, Chris.
I've never been.
I'm not telling my. I am not telling my. That is not me telling myself that. I have been
no one's
told.
Ever told me that. I don't know what you're talking about.
I have been told over and over again, with enthusiasm. No, it's fine. Your monitor's fine, because clearly we're still talking about monitors.
Yes, we are.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Glendon will talk about.
Yeah,
Glendon will talk about monitors soon.
I will.
Okay, nice segue.
It's true.
Yeah, there you go. So
I did want to touch on that real quick. So I'm also running a 10 series card. I built this computer back in 2016. I've got a 1080 in it, and I'm running 1080p. And to your point, you're right. I mean, you don't need to really go 4K. I'm still able to download. Now, I'm not buying the latest and greatest newest title all the time, but every game that I throw at this thing, it still runs. Like, there's really no reason to upgrade just yet. So,
and that's one of the things myself as well. I have not felt the push to have to upgrade my hardware. It would be nice, don't get me wrong, and I definitely would like to be able to increase. I would like to be able to play in 4K, sure, but I don't feel it's necessary. Everything I'm coming through plays just fine, and it like I said, most of it can play on max settings. So just be reasonable in what you need to obtain. Be reasonable in what you can afford. Understand your budget, and be satisfied with having lesser than what is advertised out there as the latest and greatest. And also read reviews. You can find out. You also don't want to go super cheap in everything. There is merit in that, but if you read reviews, you can just find out what some really good hardware is, what things are capable of, especially when it comes to video cards. There's a ton of people online that are self-proclaimed experts that can tell you what's good and what's not, and how things measure up. And ultimately, just read some reviews on some hardware that you're looking at, and you'll be just fine. That goes into also educate yourself about things. Like, you don't have to be an expert. You don't even have to know as much as some of the other people online, but understand just a little bit of what you're buying. So that way you're not completely in the dark and completely ignorant about all the different things out there when you're messing with your PC. And just to give a quick example of that, one of my first PC that I ever made, I was on a super tight budget. And so when I was looking, I think I put more focus on the graphics card. When I was looking at the processor, I was really trying to be cheap with it as best as I could. And so I found one that had a really good speed on it, and but it was also really cheap in price, and a little bit too good to be true type of deal once I've gone back to think about it. So I picked it up, put it in, everything works fine and stuff, but over the years, I had felt that the computer is not running as fast as it should be. When I look at specs for newer games that were coming out, I'm like, I have everything here that should work just fine, but it still wasn't running it as well as it should. I couldn't push the settings as high as I expected I should be able to. Cut to a number of years later, I finally understood what it was. So my processor I bought was a Celeron. Now, for a Celeron processor, the dies on it, the processing dies, can process things just as fast as any other processor out there. But what it lacks is the pipelines for the data to run through. And those pipelines, basically, the processor can be as fast as it wants, but if it can't push data to the processor fast enough, or even with enough capacity, it doesn't matter how fast those things are, it doesn't have enough data to process. And so that's how they get you with it being cheaper in price. It's a lot of the same hardware inside it, but they minimize some of the things in order to make it cheaper. That's just a little example of how important it is to kind of educate yourself just a little bit, just enough to be able to understand what it is you're buying. Again, you don't have to be a big tech expert, but it's very helpful to know just a little bit so you're not completely caught off guard.
you make a good point about the Celerons because they rebranded the line of those. But the way I've always told people is that they are technically broken processors. So back in the day of the first dual core, quad core systems, the Celerons were technically, let's say a quad core chip, for example, it was technically a die that did not have working two cores that are working, let's say. So it's a dual core instead of a quad core. Or one of the level 1 or level 2 cache, and I know I'm getting a little technical. We could touch on this in another video, but some of the feature sets, like you're saying, might be disabled and might not process graphics. And although they work, great for office machines, that kind of thing, basic gaming, especially when they were new coming out, you could pick up a processor for $40. They were great for people learning how to overclock, because if you fried one, you threw it away and you got another chip and you keep learning. They were great chips when they came out. But to your point, what you said, you do outgrow them kind of quick.
The celeries? The celeries.
The celeries, yeah.
Because isn't that
like
what they used to call them? Celery,
I didn't.
right?
Yeah.
Well, you put in a Bloody Mary, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. How's that beer, Chris?
This is a good beer. No, seriously, I'm not making this up. They used to call it Celerons.
Yeah, Celerons.
Shut up. Hang on. I'm not alone, right? Who else remembers Celerons being called celeries? Okay. See, I don't feel so bad. I mean, Glendon knows. Glendon's like the hard one.
Glendon just did that so you don't alone.
No.
Why don't you give him a high five?
This is a bad beer.
Get it?
Is it gonna? Is it? Wait, over. No,
over here. Okay, this is great for.
This
is really good podcast material, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
We're doing great. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. And actually, I've heard that about. I think it's Teslas, where they have lower models, but they're basically all the same car. But for some of the cheaper models, they just disable certain features.
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
Yeah. So, but anyway, let's not get into Tesla.
Literally, it's a car. It drives you crazy.
I know. I was waiting for you to say that. I gave you low-hanging fruit, low-hanging vegetables, celery. There we go.
Let's welcome Elon Musk, our new funder for TechX.
Stop!
He's here. He's backstage.
Yeah.
Too far. That's too far.
It is. That crossed the line.
You can leave now, Josh.
All right. So where was I?
So not to interrupt, but we interrupted. Back to you.
Yeah.
Where was I? Oh yeah. So the next point when you're looking at hardware, of course you can buy brand new cheaper, but if you really want to try to find something a little more top of the line, don't be afraid of used hardware. However, also be mindful of what you're looking for. By that I mean when you're buying used, whether it's off eBay, whether it's from a friend, whether it's off Craigslist, wherever, you definitely want to make sure what you're getting. Now it's probably a whole other discussion when you're trying to buy a whole computer of what you need to look out for. But if you're looking for just a single piece of hardware, a video card, even processor, definitely try to get pictures of it, especially if you're buying online. Get pictures if you can't look at it physically right there, like within town. Look for any kind of damages to it. If there's anything visible to it, you definitely want to stay away from it. Something like if it's on motherboards, make sure all the capacitors are well and good, nothing blown, no residue of any kind on the motherboard and stuff. If you're getting a CPU or GPU, one of the things to ask for is if it's been overclocked, because overclocking, it's designed to push the processors beyond their limits, beyond their advertised limits just a little bit. They do so by adding more power to it. And over time, if you do it enough, especially if it's unregulated, if you don't really know what you're doing and they're doing it for the first time, it can hinder the hardware, make it give it a shorter lifespan. So if it's asked if it's been overclocked, and if so, try to find some details about how much they've pushed it, what their cooling system is, things like that. And also, especially for GPUs, if you're buying a used GPU and you're buying something that is more newer, more higher end, and you find that it's for a great price, be very wary, because we've had the rise of crypto within recent years, and people will buy the top of the line graphics cards for crypto, run them hard, and I won't go there, 24/7, push them all day long, top of their limits, and to try to recoup costs on buying brand new hardware and then sell the old ones, whether for a better price, even for more than they're really worth. But these things have been ridden hard, and you don't want a piece of hardware like that in your computer, because there's a good chance that it's not going to last as long as you would hope it would.
Is that kind of like if you're buying like a used car, you want to find like an older person who's treated it really well, you know?
I mean, if you can find someone, if you're buying used hardware and you can find someone that has barely used their stuff, sure.
They're like blue-haired old ladies selling graphics cards.
It's a whole market. It's huge.
Facebook Marketplace. Marketplace.
You know what? I would not trust an old lady selling a high-end used video card, because I know she's been using that for crypto.
Pretty much.
Interesting.
Pretty much.
I know she. What else is she going to do? She's not playing games.
So it's the opposite then. It's the opposite of used cars.
Probably. You want a kid who bought a top of the line computer and found out he doesn't have the money to pay for it and has to get rid of it. That's probably your best bet.
There you go.
Also, in the same vein, don't be afraid of older hardware, especially when we're looking at. Of course, you're kind of looking at that a little bit if you're buying used, but I'm thinking about brand new. It's still in its shrink wrap, older hardware. As time goes on, places are still going to have inventory left over. Some of that stuff is still viable, especially if it's only a couple of years old. Don't be afraid to, and again, it goes back into be satisfied with a little bit less. Maybe it's not a 4090, but it could be a 3080 or even a 20 series. 20 series is still more than viable at the moment. Can do 4K. I think it even 20 series introduced, or was that the 10 that introduced ray tracing?
This is the
20 series. So there you go. You got ray tracing with it. I don't even have ray tracing. I can't turn that on right now. So older hardware can be very viable, so don't be afraid to look at it. One of the things that I haven't even talked about yet, but I'm going to talk about it right now, is do not underestimate your power supply. If you've bought a pre-made computer from someone, there could be a good chance that the power supply was only rated or was only set up for what the computer can handle. Maybe you built your own computer and you were trying to save a little bit of money, and you built something that works well for the computer you have, but may not work for a brand new piece of hardware, especially a video card or a processor that is going to require bigger energy drain. You really need to make sure that power supply can handle any new hardware that you're going to put in, any upgrades, especially if it's bigger hardware. You do not want that the power running out on it, because it can ultimately damage the computer. That's the worst case scenario. But if nothing else, when you try to boot up it may work fine as you turn stuff off, but as you're playing a game that's a little more resource intensive, it's needing more power to be pumped into the graphics processor, your computer will inevitably blue screen, shut down, all kinds of things that can happen with not having enough power to your computer. There are plenty of calculators online that can help you calculate what your power needs are. You just put in all the components you have, all your internal hardware. Also includes things like hard drives, peripherals, everything that you plug in that has a USB connection is going to draw power from your power supply. So all that stuff matters. So you have calculators that can help you determine what kind of power supply you need. Always want to add a little bit of overhead to it. When you find out, okay, so this is, say it's got like, you need 650 watts. You want to add a little bit more to that in order to help future-proof yourself, and also to not have to worry about really pushing your computer to its limits also.
How many gigawatts to the Back to the Future proof?
1.21 gigawatts.
What is that the right number?
Wow.
Yes.
That much of a emphasis. The
That's
only number
amazing.
I remember is 88.
1.21 gigawatts.
Yeah. That's right.
It's a bolt of lightning.
Something like that, I guess. Science.
No, it's a bolt of lightning.
Well, that is
That's
science.
what Doc Brown. That's what Doc Brown said.
That's science.
So with the movies, it's got to be true.
Yeah, I believe it.
A lot of power. Too much power,
Well,
some might say.
I mean, you need to make sure you have sufficient power in order to travel through time.
True.
You got to power
But
the
your
flux capacitor. If you have a flux capacitor in your PC, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you're harnessing enough energy in order to be able to power the flux capacitor to travel yourself through time.
Preach.
Yep.
Also, this is kind of what Mystery Goat was just saying about being happier with less, maybe. Like, maybe you don't need a graphics card that will allow you to travel through time. You just want to be able to play video games. So,
I mean...
Yeah, far less computing power.
I would like to travel through time. I mean, if you're going to build a time machine into a computer, you might as well do it with some style, right?
That's true.
They might be banned in California, Josh. It's too much power.
That's true.
In a DeLorean? No.
No, the computer.
Oh, with the computer, yeah. For sure.
If you're powering a flux capacitor, if you got solar panels, that might be okay.
Could a flux capacitor ever really be stable if it's always flux? If it's always,
If it's always in flux.
Like how does that work?
I don't know.
I don't think it's meant to be stable.
Clearly, neither am I.
Well, then you might be. Then you're going to run the risk of entering a Doctor Who episode, and that's where things will get really warbly and wonky.
That's my best Doctor Who segue there.
All right,
Sorry, did not mean to ruin it. Yeah, go. Yeah.
How many times? Where was I?
Where was I?
Power
This is great
supplies.
beer.
Power supplies. As you're learning about power supplies, one thing you want to make sure to learn about them is they have efficiency ratings and metal ratings. Help you understand how the power supply uses its power. If you have one that's that its rating is lower, then you basically run not even the risk. It's going to happen. You're going to waste a lot of electricity. So they may be cheaper in price, but over time may not be so much with your electric bill. So pay attention to the ratings, understand what they are, and get one that works best for you. If you can get a higher rating, it's definitely recommended you do so. So that way you're not wasting electricity over time. Again, it comes down to whatever your budget is too. And also look into modular power supplies. It's the idea of where you can remove the plugs from them and you can only use what you need versus regular power supplies where all the connectors are permanently. The reason why this could be helpful is one, it can be a cleaner. The inside of the computer can be set up a little bit cleaner and nicer depending on how anal you are when it comes to cable management. But then also can help with airflow. So if you got too much stuff sitting in the way and you don't know how to move it around, if you have fewer cables, obviously that helps ease some of that up. So you got better airflow going through the computer. When we consider airflow also, one final thing that you can consider when trying to maybe get the little more out of your PC hardware before having an upgrade is overclocking. Now, I mentioned when you're buying used hardware to be careful about people that have overclocked their hardware, but it is something that you can look into and something that you can squeeze a little bit more power out of aging hardware in order to be able to play some of the newer games that may demand more out of it. Now, you want to be very careful when you do this, and you want to use some guides online to be able to understand how to do it effectively and safely, because you can really damage your components if you're not doing it properly. But you can gain a little more benefits out of it and maybe even gain some more life out of your PC.
I feel like it'd also be really hard to time the lightning strikes, too.
That's
very hard.
That's where you get a regulator for your lightning rod connected to your house, and then it can regulate the power going through it. And of course, it goes through a converter and a transformer as it hits your computer and powers that flux capacitor.
Right.
But yeah, and
you kind of lightning.
You want to have a direct line to your computer. You want to make sure you have a direct line to your computer. You don't want to fry the rest of your house and fry other components that are not regulated properly for a lightning strike.
Makes sense.
We call those surge protectors. So if you don't have a surge protector, you can really damage your components if they get struck by lightning while your lightning rod is powering your flux capacitor.
Yeah, I have a surge protector here.
I just pulled that out of my butt, by the way.
Well, there's a visual.
That's what that was.
You were so good at that. Like, it sounded really great.
I thought I was going somewhere interesting, but I'm not even going to go there anymore. That's you win. That's it. I could not pull that out of my butt.
Yeah, no hesitation at all. You just did not skip a beat. You went right into your just explanation.
People bought it. People bought it though. I guarantee there's someone out there writing on a note card going, "Okay, what the? I gotta get. What did he say? Gotta go rewind it 5 seconds. Oh,
how do I buy a flux capacitor? You need to tell me that part.
Right.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazon
yeah.
Basics.
You don't want to get those. You got
Basics.
Amazon Basics. Yes.
What's
You know,
that, Josh?
You got to be careful when you buy those used, though. You have to get it from some kid, not some
It's true.
Make sure
old lady.
Yeah.
Because she's definitely been back in time a lot.
Yeah, a lot. She gets thrown back in time a lot.
Mileage,
Yeah.
Mm.
She's been
Or
raised hard.
kilometerage, right? As they say in countries that are not the U.S., right? If it's mileage
Yep.
here, isn't it kilometerage? Is that a word?
Kilometerage. Some of our
Kilometerage?
international listeners will let us know.
I'd imagine.
I
No?
think it's kilometers.
We
Yeah,
can
all
ask,
two of them.
Yeah.
we
I
can
like
ask
Chris's
Kieran.
word better.
We can ask Kieran when he comes in later tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
All right, so
True.
I'm almost done here.
No worries.
One final tip. How's that beer, Chris?
This is a good beer.
It needs another
Done.
one.
No, I know my limit. Like this, one is enough. One and done.
You said 2 before. When did this turn to 1?
Well, because this is a tall can.
Oh.
It's very
Ah.
it's taller than me.
How many
Like-
has he had? How many has he had?
One.
It's only been
One
one.
to two.
Well, it's more like 1.5.
But he puts
But,
ice
so-
in it, so
Well,
He
I
answered,
put ice-
he answered my question. I was going to do a back to the quote, but I can't do it anymore.
What?
The
Wait,
time's
oh.
passed. No, time's passed. It's all right.
Okay, never mind.
Mm.
Oh, I was going to tell you a time travel joke, but you hated it. Come on! How did that land flat? Hang on. Which one of you bozos got the cricket sound effect?
that'd be me.
Okay, that's
And Josh is banned. All right.
He's gone.
This is Josh's last episode.
I'm going to be banned from my own show.
No, they just when they edit the podcast, they just take him out real quickly and do that Poochie thing where they just move a cell shading of him off the screen.
Poochie went back to his home planet. Yeah.
Josh went back to his home planet, and on his way, he was killed by aliens lasers.
No, it was great. I loved it. I love the surprises. I love sound effects.
Well, I don't think this is a podcast with sound effects per se, but I felt like that one in particular just really fit.
That was perfect.
It was good timing, admittedly. Love a little. What's the species of a cricket? Does anybody know? I don't know. What is the species?
Is it wireless?
God. So many bad jokes. So many bad jokes.
Yes, it is.
All
It
right,
is now.
my last point.
Your last point. Yes.
So if you're PC gaming on a budget, the last thing, of course, you're going to think of, or it's not going to be the last thing you think of, but the last thing I might for all of this, after you got hardware, or even if you're trying to extend the life of your hardware, how about games? Games are stupid expensive right now. They're getting into $70, $80, $90 for some of them. So if you're gaming on a budget, you can barely afford the hardware. How are you going to afford the games? The great part is that you can buy PC games on a budget also. Now, some people may not even want to buy. They can do subscription services. There's plenty of those today, especially Xbox Game Pass. It's probably the best one on PC. There's also others. EA has a version of it. Ubisoft has a version of it. But basically, you just pay a monthly fee, and you can play all the games that they have available for it. That's great for a lot of people that want to play a ton of different games and maybe want to try the newest ones that come out, especially if from a specific company. Ubisoft, they'll put all their brand new games coming out. You can play Assassin's Creed Mirage if you got Ubisoft Connect right now. So, or whenever it comes out. But that may not be great for some people. For other people, maybe you don't have enough time to play video games between family, work, responsibilities. You may just have time to play one game, a few hours once a night, every few nights. A subscription service is not going to benefit you, and you may end up wasting money in the end. That's okay, because PC games have a ton of sales online. They have a ton of ways to buy them cheaper. In fact, I have a rule for myself. I do not buy PC games brand new at full price, because the sales just come quickly, and they come the discounts are pretty good most of the time, I have to say.
Yeah, and what? Epic releases 1 or 2 new games every week.
Oh, yeah.
Steam is constantly releasing games. Like Fanatical.
My Epic library is filled with games that I've only paid for 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
And they've continued to do it. They're still doing it. Steam has a sale, every few months. It's October right now. We're about to have a Halloween sale. After that, in November, you're going to have a fall sale. You're going to have a winter sale. You're going to have a spring sale, summer sale.
Forget sale. You can get them for free. Like Yasir over on the Discord server. I mean, he keeps an eye on a lot of this stuff, but I usually get like emails from GOG or Fanatical or whatever. And I think is Fanatical? Is that the games?
Yeah. There's one of them.
Is that what I'm thinking?
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to go into that in a minute.
So sorry, did not mean to interrupt, but like, I mean, there's so much you don't even have to wait for a sale for.
And there's other services. Indie Gala is probably what Yasir puts on a lot of times. Ton of games that are offered for free on there. Even other places will every once in a while have a game for free. So you're able to find them. If you're looking for some of the more AAA games, though, ones from the big companies and the flagship games that keep coming out, probably not going to find those for free often. Your best bet is going to be from Epic Game Store, especially during the holidays. They'll run around Christmas time. They'll run their free game offer every single day, basically. But every week they have something new, and they have really good ones. Twitch Prime, if you have an Amazon Prime account connected to Twitch, and every month they have a selection of games. I got all of the EA Star Wars games for free from Twitch and Epic. So they're out there, and you're able to get them if you just pay attention a little bit. But even if they aren't offered for free, you can still get them on sale. A lot of times, like we said, the Steam sale is a great source for that. Fanatical is a great source. GreenManGaming.com is another source where you can find games for very cheap, especially if you're willing to wait. Again, it comes down to not having to have the latest and greatest all the time. I have a massive backlog of video games on my PC that I have not touched. I have no business buying the latest game that just came out. Doesn't mean I'm not going to, but it's tempting. But if you have patience, just wait a little bit. They will go on sale for a heavy discount price, especially if you wait a couple of years. I know sometimes that may be difficult to do. The temptation is there, but again, patience, you can win out quite a bit in the end. Also, if you really do need a brand new game, one that you've really been looking forward to and you've just been itching for it to come out, again, Green Man Gaming and Fanatical are 2 sites I think a lot of people kind of sleep on because it's not a service like Steam or Epic or one of the others, but they run deals constantly all the time. And one of the best things that they do is you can find brand new games on pre-order that are coming out on sale for about 15 to 20% off. If I'm going to buy a brand new game, I'm going to buy it that is set to come out that I'm really looking forward to. I'm definitely going to buy it from there and buy it on sale. I'm not going to pay full price for it because at this point in time, there's honestly no reason to. And I have a budget myself, so I'm definitely going to try to squeeze as much money out as I can. So yeah, those are my tips for gaming on a budget. Goes down into what kind of hardware to get, but also how to find games for much cheaper.
Wow. Dude, that was comprehensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I did all that without ChatGPT.
Dude, that's even more impressive.
So there is one kind of extra tip that I have. You briefly touched on it. But if you're looking for a pre-built budget gaming system or you want to build a system for cheap, a good starting system is actually an old Office PC. They're OEM, so you really can't customize them too much, but you can still throw a graphics card into them. The CPUs you cannot overclock. They're locked by the OEM, so there are some downsides to them. You can't pull the chip out, put it in another board, and try and overclock it. It's actually the chip that's locked. But I mean, you can find Core i5, i7 CPU, desktops for anywhere between like $70 to $150. And now that at least Dell has updated, so they're actually using these standard power supply plugs. You can still swap out actual power supplies instead of their OEM swap ones. And you could throw in a 3000 series GPU or something like that, and you're up and running for, depending on the price of the card, you might be $200-$300, maybe more, depending on what you pay for the GPU. So there's definitely budget options out there. That goes another avenue.
That goes back to my tip of not being afraid to buy used hardware.
Yep. Exactly. That's a good source of used hardware.
Fantastic. Thank you, Goat. And I mean, unless anybody else had anything to add, I know, again, you've got to pop off to your game at some point. That's why I'd prefer to take what you had to share first.
Actually, I was going to say, we got about 10 minutes, but so I don't have to interrupt anyone else. I think I'm just going to pop out right now.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll still be
here. It's always ad hoc.
Yep. I'll still be here, you guys, and I appreciate it. Have a good rest of the show.
Thank you. We hopefully will. I mean, that's the goal. Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed
Chris.
that. Chris.
Is he going to leave yet, or what? Like, I'm just sitting here waiting.
How's that beer, Chris? How's that beer, Chris?
This is a good beer.
It's gone, is what it is.
That might be the title now. How is our beer?
Now, this is a test to see if the editors are really listening. Like, beer, I'm sure, will not rank at all, and then YouTube will get mad and say, no, demonetize alcohol consumption. Okay, sure.
This is great water.
It's amazing, sparkling,
non-alcoholic beer.
Very piney, very hoppy. This is good hoppy drink. Hoppy sips. I'm not sure where I'm going with that. Okay. It's hoppy.
All right.
It's hoppy.
That's fine.
Speaking of hoppy, let's hop along to Toxic Doom, aka Brad. And you've got tonight to share with us after that very awkward segue, which is par for the course around here, at least as far as I'm concerned. VPNs, what we really have to watch out for, whether they're warnings, secrets, etc. Because there are so many VPNs. Like there are a dime a dozen, and I should point out that this video is not sponsored by a VPN. It's the only tech video on YouTube that is not sponsored by a VPN. Literally, the only one in existence. Actually, I'm going to go beyond YouTube. Ever, this is the only video that's ever been done about a VPN that is not sponsored by a VPN.
Maybe that's the title. The VPN won't sponsor us.
Yeah, this is why a VPN company will never sponsor us. Dude, wow. Brad, you got the clickbait down.
I'm doing it right now.
You nailed it. Dude. I'd watch that. I'm here right now, and I'd still watch that.
Do you have a choice?
No.
Anyway. I was going to touch on, the 5 pros and cons, kind of briefly talking about what a VPN is, that kind of thing. So we've all seen the advertisements, especially on YouTube, to your point, whether it be an actual ad or an ad in somebody's video saying, oh, it's sponsored by XVPN, whatever it may be. A VPN is just something that encrypts your data as it's flowing through the internet. And we're going to kind of touch on how it works and cut the pros of using one. And then, like I said, the cons of even using one, if you need one even. So the first point I'm going to go over is that the VPN that allows enhanced security and privacy. VPNs encrypt your internet connection, protecting the sensitive data that you may be transmitting from potential hackers or even surveillance, like at work or even your ISP. For example, when you send data across the internet, even if you use incognito mode, that's still just data sent across the internet. It's not secret to anybody. That's just data that's going out online through the wires, through your ISP to the broad internet. VPNs allow anonymous browsing. So your VPNs will mask your IP address. It makes it challenging for websites to track your location and online activities. And the way it does that is that if you visit google.com and your computer's going to that website, it's going to send an acknowledgement or send some request packets to Google and get that data back from Google. It's a request and an acknowledgement. When that data is going to and from Google, it's saying, whatever IP address your house is at. And that can be geo-tracked to where your physical location may be, all the way down to your house or even at least, potentially city. If you want to anonymize where that data is coming from, at least on that IP level, A VPN is going to reroute your data from your PC to another server online, and then that data will then go to the broad internet to request that data from Google. So Google thinks you might be, for Chris, let's use you, for example, you're in Seattle. If you want to pretend that you're, in Arizona, you can connect to a server in Arizona, and that data will go out from your house through Arizona and then to the broad internet to Google. So to Google, it looks like you're, again, in Arizona. And you can obviously go abroad to Europe and many other countries. The advantage of this could be that you can get access to restricted content. We've heard of many different countries that are outside the US that have blocked certain, news outlets or apps like Reddit, but you just cannot access, including YouTube. VPNs allow people that are in those countries to connect to those servers. Again, could be for them international, which might be here in the US, Mexico, Canada, whatever it may be, where those sites are not blocked and they are allowed to access that data to the broad internet, and they get the information that they may need, whether it be through email, watching YouTube, that kind of thing. Another pro of using a VPN is secure public Wi-Fi connections. So VPNs can use or add a layer of security when using public Wi-Fi. So if you've gone to a Starbucks and there's no password on their Wi-Fi, you can just go in. Some places have gotten better about this. They'll have our password today or something like that, or they'll have a couple flyers up around the store and you can scan it or just type in the password. That's going to help try and prevent people from the nearby area. Could be apartment buildings, could be somebody sitting in a car, whatever it may be, trying to connect to that network. If they have access to that network, they can theoretically see who's on it and then potentially intercept some of the data that's coming across.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Are captive portals any better? Because they're so miserable to use, and it takes so long for the captive portal to launch to have me click the things that I need to. It's crazy. So I'm just curious if those make things better.
Captive portals are more on the web page or login side. I don't think it's a little different how they'll function, but to my understanding is that you're still getting online and going through a web service that's going to access that portal to then give you access to more services. So that won't really help in this situation, because captive portals, it's again more of a web page and it's just encased in that, whereas your VPN is going to be all of your internet connection. So if you're on a VPN, it could be your Netflix, it could be Amazon, whatever it may be, whereas a captive portal, it's a set data point or website that you're trying to connect to. But that's just generally where I'm going to go with that, because I'm not going to dive down that rabbit hole.
Okay. No, don't.
But that kind of they just function differently. This is the way I'll leave it. But going back to the Starbucks idea, right? So if you've got an open access point with no password and anybody's connecting to it, you don't know who else is on that network. You know that you're going to Amazon.com, you're checking your emails, whatever it may be. But when you pulled up your Wi-Fi and you just see Starbucks Wi-Fi, instinctively, a lot of people just click it, they connect, and good to go. Well, there are these things called man-in-the-middle attacks. And what that is basically a hacker or somebody that's not ethically bound might set up their own Wi-Fi within the vicinity of that Starbucks, let's say, and it'll say Starbucks free. It might say just Starbucks is their Wi-Fi. And what they're doing is they're hoping that you're going to connect to them, which in turn, they're receiving your data and then rebroadcasting that back out to the actual Starbucks Wi-Fi. And in doing so, what they're basically doing is copying or seeing all the data that you go on. It could be Amazon, again, checking your email, Netflix, that kind of thing. And any of the data that they can grab, they can actually compile and try and get some sort of user information. Could be username, passwords, credit card information, that kind of thing. While not on top of that, but they could gain access to your computer. So a VPN, if you are susceptible to that man-in-the-middle attack, where somebody might be trying to get your data think of a VPN as taking your data, in this case, going through that potential hacker. If you connect to your VPN, it's going to encrypt that data. And the way that it encrypts it is pretend I have a letter that just says hello on it. If I'm sending that to Chris through the internet, pretending it's an email, again, this is very simplified, but imagine me just sending that data through a server. Chris receives it. He gets the word hello. Well, a VPN basically takes that letter and puts it in an envelope with a lock on it, basically encrypting it, as we'll call it. So anybody that can receive that packet, or somebody tries to intercept that data, they have to crack the code. They have to unlock it. And it's very difficult to do that. They can. It's, again, very, very difficult and time consuming depending on the encryption level. But for sake of argument, it's very difficult to crack that. And unless there's something they're really trying to get into, whether it be governmental services or, hacking other companies to, leak data or something like that, they're really not going to try to get your Amazon password or get your Netflix login or your credit card number. It's not worth the time. So that, in a shell, that's kind of how the VPN works. It's taking that data, your message that you're sending and receiving, putting it into a type of envelope with a key. You have the key, and the receiver also has the key, so you're both allowed to read the messages. The last pro that I've got is remote access. So a lot of us may still work at home. We use VPNs to connect to work. Some of us, use a lot of data center information here. Like I use a lot of remote desktop information for work, and I work in the healthcare industry, so it's HIPAA regulated. Everything has to be encrypted from my office to my machine here at home. And VPNs, again, will allow the secure remote access to private networks, which is, again, beneficial for not only work, but also travel. Kind of touching back on if you visited a country that might be restrictive on the type of data that you can access, again, maybe YouTube or Gmail or something along those lines, you may not have access to those in that country. But if you have a VPN on your cell phone or your computer, you can connect outside the country and gain access to that network. So that's kind of like the pros of using VPNs, right? Your data is sent and received, encrypted through your ISP. Your ISP can't see what you're doing. They just see data going in and out. Anybody that tries to intercept your data, they only see encrypted data. It's just jumbled garbage. They don't really know what it means. But only you and the connected server that you're passing your data to the broad internet, those have the keys to unlock those messages to get you access to the internet. So moving on to the cons. Obviously, these are, they're not free. They typically offer a subscription model for these.
Virtual private networks aren't free, right?
Correct. Yeah, the VPNs are not free.
As opposed to the tips or the cons that you're sharing. Those are free.
Yes, exactly. Now I'm waiting for money.
I was willing to pay for them. I don't know what you guys were thinking, but
I'll send you my PayPal.
Okay, great.
There you go. Use a VPN if you're going to do it, though.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah. So your VPN services require a subscription, and it potentially deters users because they're not always affordable. There's plenty of them out there. There are free ones, but you should definitely stay away from those, and I'll touch into why here in a second. But they're not exactly cheap, and the average consumer, again, who might be just checking their email, Netflix, whatever, just media consumption, right? You really don't need a VPN. A lot of these advertisements make it sound like, oh, it'll protect your data while you're online and this, and that. What they're really meaning is they're protecting your data from your computer to the broad internet outside of your ISP, or having those man-in-the-middle attacks, as I was describing before. That's what they're really advertising. It's not that they're saying that your data, once you're online, is going to be completely secure, because you're still accessing the internet. It's the same internet. You're just accessing it somewhere else, geolocation-wise. The typical average price per month can range anywhere probably between I'd say now they've probably gone up now, anywhere between $12 to $25+ a month. Many of them have different features, different offering different geolocations or server speeds, and they're not all the same. We'll touch into those in a second, but they all theoretically work the same as far as the functionality, but the data that's being handled through that VPN is sometimes tracked by the VPN itself. So actually, I'll just go ahead and jump to that point since we're on it. And basically, you want to try and find a service that's going to not log your data. So when you log into their service, you basically create a data trail. They could show when you're connected. They could see the type of data that you're sending in and out of their service. They can log that data, store it for however long they'd like. You're agreeing to their terms of service when you sign up. And if they choose to do that and something malicious happens to you or your computer's infected and you're sending out, code or attacks through your infected PC, and it eventually comes back from, let's say, the federal level for just trying to investigate what may have happened to a large data breach or something like that, they can go back to that VPN provider and say, this came from this IP address. Who sent this data? If that VPN provider is holding on to that data, they can easily go in and they could say, well, we had 500 people plugged in through this one server, but we saw all that data coming from this person or this IP address who was this login account. And they can easily track it back to you. And then before you know, you've got somebody knocking on your door. So realistically, you want to try and find a VPN that's going to delete those logs after you log out, basically a no trace. That's the best way, not only to ensure that your data online as it's communicated is safe, but also there's if there is a data breach within on the provider side, your data is not going to get theoretically breached. They're just going to have your billing information. And most of the time that credit card information and your name and address and stuff, that's all encrypted. So that kind of goes back to the idea of your data is going to be more safe if you don't have the logging issues. Another con with VPNs is speed reduction. So if you have a gigabit internet connection and you're downloading everything, but you want your data safe and secure through the internet pipe to the services that you're connecting to, all of that data, as I was saying before, if you have the word hello and you're putting that in an envelope, every single message that's going in and out of your computer has to be encrypted. It costs processing time. It doesn't happen as fast as your natural internet pipe will allow it because your computer has to work harder, as does the server. You may only get, if you're lucky, 200, 300 megabit or more on a VPN, which is still good, but it's not to the point where it's useful for every type of service. Again, if you're just doing email checking and media consumption, you don't need a VPN. Another con is the possible potential for misuse. Touching on the idea of if your computer is infected, you could be sending out malicious code across the internet for whether it be other hackers to use your code, or your computer is what they call a zombie. They're executing your computer to do certain things behind the scenes. You don't see anything, but your computer could be actively doing malicious things online. The VPN can allow the bad guys, per se, to be anonymous online. Hard to track. So if there is a true breach of data, it's hard to track those people down. So it can cause a headache for a lot of regulation when proposing not only new laws, but enforcing current laws and regulations.
It's great for Halloween, though. Computer zombies.
Dude, it's amazing.
Then my last point here is to talk about service restrictions and blocking. So some websites and services block access from known IP addresses from big VPNs. they limit the usability of certain activities. It's called or referenced to as geo-blocking. So we've all heard, if you have not heard this, it's pretty interesting, but you can use a VPN to connect to another country and let's say use Netflix into Canada. If you're from the US to Canada or US to Europe, they have different movies and TV shows due to the copyright material or copyright contracts with the studios,
licensing, right?
Because of licensing, that it's only allowed to be in certain countries. If you use a VPN, they're starting to crack down pretty hard onto it. But if you used a VPN, even at your router level, your computer necessarily didn't even have to do it, but your router might be able to log into the service, make your entire house. Doesn't matter if it's your tablet, your phone, your Xbox, whatever it may be. Basically, it looks like you just moved to another country and set yourself there within 5 minutes.
By the way, fun fact, no one will know this unless they use a VPN, but this show you're watching right now is actually the biggest show in Moldova. We're huge there. And no one knows that. No one knows that unless you use a VPN. So,
can we put the chart up here to show all the users in Moldova?
Yeah, we're like the #1 show on Netflix there.
And the funny thing, we only have 4 viewers there, just to show you the popularity of the program.
It knows no bounds.
No,
indeed. Not at all. So the geo-blocking, that's been enforced. So again, you used to be able to make it look like you were in another country. You could access content that wasn't available in your country, stream it like you were in that country, but from the comfort of your own home. There is a way around this, however. And the best way to do that is to host your own VPN. And that might be a topic for another day. But if you know of a very close friend and you're not going to abuse their internet connection, because remember, even though the data is encrypted, it's making it look like you're at wherever the physical server is that you're connected to, makes you look like you're there. So if you connect to your friend's house and you start throwing some illegal torrents out on the internet, they might get a knock on their door saying, hey, why are you file sharing? You don't own this content. They're going to get in trouble, right? They could point the finger at you. You're in another country. That's, getting into the gray area. But basically what I'm saying is use it ethically. But if you have a friend that is in another country, whether it be Australia or Europe or Canada, and they're willing to set up a VPN server, which there is free software out there, you could theoretically connect to that. You would be using their home internet connection, and you could still get around that geo-blocking because that is a private internet address. It's not a service-owned IP address. Because when you connect to a VPN big box company, as I'll call it, you're sharing those servers, those physical locations, with hundreds or thousands of people connecting at the same time. So those IP addresses are very well known to these other streaming sites. So there are some ways to get around this still. But that is just, another con is that geo-blocking is a thing, and it's eventually going to become back to where we are without VPNs. Content's just not going to be available to everybody.
Now, speaking of VPN, I got a VP and I got a PV, and this is a good beer. It was just a lot of beer. So I'm going to let y'all host this for a minute. Because if I don't, I'm going to VPN all over the chair.
Well, why do you love a beer? But all those were.
The party starts now, everybody.
Yeah.
Too good.
It's probably getting edited out anyway, so.
So I actually found out that I was geo-blocked on a website.
Did you?
Yeah. And I guess it was back from whenever the most current generation of consoles went on sale.
Mm-hmm.
The PS5 and the new Xbox Series X. I just had 2 computers up and 2 monitors, and I was monitoring multiple websites because I didn't want to miss out with the pre-order. And apparently one of them considered it spam, or refreshing and apparently one of them considered it spam, refreshing the page over and over and over to get into it, and blocked me from the website. So I can't access it on my computer until I have a different IP address, because that's what they've got blocked.
I had something weird happen this morning when I was pre-ordering the Bamboo A1 Mini. It thought, for some reason, it kept showing up as Europe. Like, it kept thinking I was in Europe.
Oh,
and
really?
I kept getting the like, yeah, and I wasn't on a VPN. I was just on my regular internet, and it was telling me I had to keep switching it to USA.
That happened to me this morning. Remember when I was saying that, it shows available, or no, maybe it was yesterday, but it showed available for me?
Yeah.
That was the same thing. It was defaulting me to the worldwide site and not the US site.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it was doing that.
Yeah, it's it can be frustrating. I mean, I've seen it online too, where even YouTube videos, occasionally, it's rare, but occasionally here in the States, I'll click on a music video or something like that. It'll pull up a black screen and says, this content is not available in your country.
Yeah.
And vice versa. That'll happen in other countries where they're trying to watch US videos. So again, the way around that is use a VPN. You log in, it's like, all right, now I'm in Europe. I can click that content and can stream it.
Right.
YouTube's still a little bit lax with it, but there's other Netflix and Amazon, they've caught on. So
what happened, Chris? Chris looks like he's misplaced something.
His ears may have come on.
And he's trying to find his headphones. Okay, so he's trying to find his headphones. See, it looks like
everybody's staring at him.
Maybe found them, and now he's inserted them into his ears, and he now can hear us again, I believe. Maybe not?
No,
we're not sure. Looks like he's a little perplexed. Things aren't going the way he thought it would go, putting the headphones in, and now we got thumbs up. All right, Chris can hear us.
Sorry. Yeah, no. I could hear there was a party in the other room, and that was, and then it died, and then I got back, and I'm like, they're still dead, and
it's my fault.
It flipped to another audio. Yeah, it would be, because it had to do with audio routing issues, and you were exactly the person that I was going to blame. So I did not mean to pee on the VPN parade. Is there a VPN am I coming in too late?
Unless you've got another talking point. I mean, we've dried up here.
Okay.
No, we were just talking about urinating, so here, perfect time. Actually.
That took a left turn.
Not sure I was, but that's
all right. Fine. Well, you're in for a treat. You're in, get it? Because it's like, you're in.
Yeah.
Too tired for this.
Okay, speaking of Josh and audio. Because you were talking and the audio issues that I obviously had. It's a nice segue into what you wanted to cover. Specifically, in the realm of audio, of which I am a complete noob, which explains so much.
Well, for better or for worse, I may be coming at this from the right angle because I'm actually mostly involved in post-production, the editing aspect of things. And there are so many times.
When you say right angle, are you being obtuse?
Yeah, cute. Being very obtuse.
No, you're not. That was a cute joke, I thought. Yeah.
It was. That was a good one. I appreciated that one.
This is a tough crowd, dude. I'm telling you. I'm laying it down. All right, Josh, sorry not to interrupt.
No, I appreciate it. I do. I just, that's all.
You appreciate it.
This is very highbrow humor right now. This is very intellectual. So it takes a little bit. You need to give me some time, okay?
Unibrow humor, more like it.
We're just making sure that the jokes have time to process for all the Moldovians that are watching.
It's a whole, all four of them, all four in Moldovia.
Well,
get that pie chart back up.
Thanks, folks.
Happen, and everything. They're reading this on captions. So
through their VPN.
Right. Yeah, through their VPN.
It's the only way to get the video.
Anyway.
Sorry. You're talking about audio, and I totally derailed you.
That was a good beer.
It was a good beer. Yeah, mine is good too. No, so I'm sure you've listened to plenty of podcasts where you're just like, what is going on? I can't even hear what they're saying. I'm in the car.
Every white guy on the planet has a podcast.
Yeah.
Seriously. It's a thing.
It's true. And every celebrity.
I was just making light of the fact. Okay.
Oh, because we're all white guys. Okay,
that was a really good beer.
But it's true.
It's true.
True.
No, you are very right.
He's got a podcast.
Yep,
about
I know.
what I couldn't say. Okay,
But also every B-list celebrity too. I just have to say, like,
and they all watch each other's podcasts.
D-list No, actually they don't. Actually, here's a fun fact: they don't watch any podcast. They don't watch or listen to any podcast whatsoever.
Interesting.
But they don't have a Moldovan group.
The audience.
Watch.
We
They don't have that Moldovan fan base like we have.
Yeah, you don't want that on your side.
Is that what they call? Is that what they call them, Moldovans? Is that right,
dude? What kind of host are you? You don't know our fans.
I know.
Yeah, get out of here, Josh. Let's start over. Let's just exclude Josh. We'll rewind this.
Probably a good idea. All right, so let's reboot the conversation. Josh, I will shut up.
No, it's fine. It's all good. It's all good. Just saying, if you listen to podcasts and the audio isn't great and you want to start your own podcast, or maybe you have one going and you want to continue it and up your audio game just a little bit, I have tips that will help with that. And the first of my 10 is, I guess, room treatment is important. I mean, if you're in a place where like it's just echoing like crazy, and you may look like a crazy person when you're kind of trying to diagnose these problems, basically you need to, you need to go into the room and like clap. Just go around and like clap. And if you're hearing that clap come back like, really echoey,
well, penicillin, I think, is the thing that clears that up.
What's that?
All right, there we go again. We're off the rails here.
We're off the rails again. I know.
Yeah.
Were we ever
took no time?
Were we ever on the rails? I gotta ask. I'm just saying.
The first few minutes of the podcast were good.
It was downhill from there 4 hours ago. I walk around the room clapping. I don't even need to use a mic. But I'm just saying that if you have this random clap happening, penicillin will clear it up.
Yeah, no, that's a good. Always see your doctor. Get that checked out first and foremost. But if you're hearing problems when you walk into a room and you're clapping, you might want to do something about that.
So wait, why would we? Okay, sorry. Again, I'm going to try to get you back on track here after derailing you for the umpteenth time.
I'm very curious how this is going to happen.
Why would we clap around the room again? Why?
Okay, maybe not around the room. I was just
okay. Well, like in the vicinity of the microphone. Like, why would we? What's the reason to clap?
Because if you're hearing it echo like crazy, like what you want is you want it to be dead. So like you clap and you don't hear any reverberation at all. It just ends.
In your monitor, in like what your headset or what have you,
or just in your ears. I mean, if you go into the room and you're hearing like the room echo, I mean, you'll probably know if you talk. If you're like yelling, you can hear the sound. Just it's like, oh my gosh, right? That's not a great starting point if you're hearing all that echoing. And some of the things you can do to combat that, if you have a room, if there's another room you could go in that has carpet, that could be a big beneficial thing. Or rugs, if you want to put rugs down on the floor, that's an easy place to start. That nobody's gonna be worried about what it looks like. Rugs look nice typically, unless you get terrible looking rugs. The other thing you can do is acoustic panels. And this is where I was thinking earlier when you said DI buy, because that is where I'm at. I will spend the extra money and just buy it all put together already. And I know so many people in my field who are so handy, and I'm so jealous of it. And I want to be handy, but I'm not. So I bought these acoustic panels on Amazon for I think they were a little pricey, I'll admit, but I think they're like 48 inches by 12 inches. They're nice big panels.
Well, it's not the size, it's the amount of audio that you push at them. Just again, got to put that out there for all the girth folk.
Thank you, Chris. You're making a lot of people listening feel much, much better.
I feel that way.
Yeah. So I bought these on Amazon for like $85 a pop. I got 2 of them. Kind of expensive, but then I hung them up on the walls, and I'm serious, it transformed the audio in this room. Like, just these 2. I was ready to put more behind here, and I didn't even have to do much because they're in front of me, so I'm guessing that they're absorbing the sound as I'm speaking this way and preventing it from echoing behind me. But I also just got a bunch of foam, and I know like you'll see if you see any podcast studio, they have all this foam all over the place. The foam doesn't do as much as I would hope. I lined it like all across like above this window, toward the ceiling above here, like anywhere I could, because the foam is relatively cheap. But if you're looking for that, I would get at least like 2-inch thick foam. Don't mess around. There's a lot of stuff that's like an inch thick, and it's just not enough to really do a whole lot. Even the 2-inch thick ones that I have, I don't really know if it's making that much of a difference. Like I said, those panels I got off Amazon, I'd have to look what brand they are, but they really, really helped. So you could also do the DIY method, which I was kind of scared to talk about because, I'm not a DIY person. However, Acoustimac.com now has DIY kits. They give you everything you need. You just have to assemble them. And the prices are actually pretty good on those. It's like 20 to $30 for like a nice big panel. And you just have to do like the assembling part yourself, but the wood frame, they ship you that. They ship you all the pieces. You just have to put it together. So I think Acoustimac.com has done a good thing with that. They didn't have those when I was looking for mine, by the way. So the other thing is if you're just doing a guest appearance on a podcast and you're not going to be posting regularly, like me, I'm never going to be on this podcast again. This is the only time I'm going to be doing this. So...
First and last.
You know what you like.
This is the first and last. I'm that's it. If you're only going to be on once and you're not going to go through all that work, which I don't blame you, or spending the money, that's when you have to kind of get back in touch with your youth, with your childhood side, and build yourself a pillow fort. Because if you use bed sheets and pillows, and even if you have to if you're not on video and you can crawl under the sheets in bed with your microphone, it will sound pretty dead. That'll help. The other thing is if you have a closet with lots of clothes, you can scoot in there.
Yeah.
If you're gonna it's also good if you're just gonna do voiceover work of some kind. You can get by doing stuff. I know professional voiceover artists that will just go in their closets and use it.
My buddy does that. He does the audio. He works on the PowerPoint slides and stuff for training videos for companies, but he does the same thing. He goes into a closet. He's got some basically bed sheets. He stands in the center of the square with, and he'll read his script, record it on his computer right behind him behind a closed door. They'll record everything and then stitch it together, and it works. It's really good.
Yeah, so that's a good low cost, just way to get away with it. The other thing, of course, the next thing on my list is really, really important, and I feel like you really can't get around trying to save money on this one. It's your mic choice. The mic is really, really important, actually. So if you're gonna spend, I would say if you're gonna spend the most money, you probably want to spend it on a mic.
Even with audio or even with video, right? We might have perfect video, but if the audio is garbage, no one's going to watch, versus maybe a video that's not perfect. It's serviceable, but the audio is awesome. People will watch. Audio is critical, even when it comes to video itself. And for whatever it's worth, Josh, just to set some context here, you edit podcasts, you edit audio. This is what you do. So you're not just looking at a list on Wikipedia here. This is you've been steeped in this for eons, right? So you're speaking from experience.
Yeah, I worked in radio for 10 years and then worked in podcasting for 8 years after that. And as an editor, I can tell you a lot of the stuff I get, they're not following my list of tips. And I try so hard. This is the ideal. So this is the ideal list of things that I would love people to do. Not everyone does all these things. And also just to make it clear, even if I try to be as perfect as I can at the beginning of this podcast, all of my stuff conked out on me for reasons I don't understand, because I basically have my mixer is a computer that's interfacing with another computer, and things can go wrong. So don't expect if you spend lots of money on things, it's going to just make everything better, because it introduces new problems, basically. So be patient and, try to take things as they come. Try not to get too frustrated. But anyway, your mic choice, though, is very important. I was going to say there's two choices that you basically have in the world of podcasting when you're looking for microphones: dynamic and condenser. Condenser microphones are much more sensitive. They will pick up the room a whole lot more. So that's where the room treatment is very important. And Chris's room is perfect because he's got so much stuff in there to absorb sound. It's unbelievable. You don't have to buy any panels, Chris. You've got you're constantly making more absorption material on a daily basis.
Vader sucks the air out of the room.
That's exactly right. You got Surprised you have any sound in there to begin with, actually. But yeah, exactly. So I would choose, personally, I like dynamic microphones better. So in a lot of cases, condenser microphones can be fine, but I think if you're not dealing with a perfect environment, dynamic is the way to go because they're less sensitive. So you actually need to get closer to the mic to get best results. But that's a good thing if you're podcasting and you're not too worried about a microphone being in your shot, as I am right now. because if you're closer to the mic, it's going to pick up less of the room. So anything going on in the background, you're not going to hear as much. So that's actually a benefit. And then there's also the USB versus XLR conversation, which I know it's very easy to go USB. That's plug and play. You can, yeah, exactly. Chris did it. Toxic did it. Glendon, that's an XLR mic though, right?
No, this one is not. It's USB.
Oh, okay. What one is that? Is that the Shure? Is that a Shure? Or is
the Beacon?
Oh, it's a Beacon. Okay.
Yep.
See, that's the one I switched from because it was taking up too many CPU cycles, and honestly, the software is kind of kludgy after having it for about a year, and I ended up switching to the Rode NT USB Plus.
Yeah.
On the desk. So he switched from this mic to that mic, and I switched from that mic to this mic. It's weird how we transposed. It's interesting.
Well,
it played out that way.
It's working for Glenn, and it wasn't working for you. It just depends on a lot of factors when it comes to that. I personally like XLR mics though better because I like to separate the two components, like to have a USB interface that I can get separately from the microphone.
Well, that's the thing, is that USB microphones will often they'll run into other issues because the bus is underpowered, or there are too many other devices that are siphoning power from the bus. And so you end up having other issues, which is one of the reasons why I ended up moving away from the Beacon mic, is I was trying to minimize. I ran into I did a couple of videos and the audio just had all these random pops and crackles. And, I opted to go back to the Rode, or go back to a Rode after having the Rode Mini USB. This is the USB Plus, so it's a little larger, but minimizing or eliminating any kind of software, and being very mindful of what was running on the system at any given time to lower the CPU overhead. I've generally not had, after doing that, had too many issues with USB mics over the years, and I've been using them since the AT2020, like over a decade ago.
Oh, AT2020 was another one I was going to suggest in terms of like mics that you can look at, because if you're looking at USB mics, I like the Rode Pod mic. I like the one you just got, the NT
Plus.
What is it?
USB Plus. Yeah, NT USB Plus.
I thought because that Glendon, that Beacon mic, they clearly took design cues from Shure.
It looks like an SM7B.
Yeah, it looks like an SM7B. They actually have an MV7, which is a USB equivalent to that, which I think is a pretty good one. And then Audio-Technica, I believe the AT2040 is a dynamic mic, actually. I think the AT2020 is a condenser. When I was looking.
What happens if you get a condenser mic and it starts expanding? Is that normal?
It's really dangerous. Like, you need to get out ASAP.
Yeah, throw it outside.
You need to throw it outside.
Okay, just making sure.
I was right. The AT2040 is a dynamic mic. That's probably why I put it on my list. But the 2020 is good too, but just be mindful of your environment. If you have a lot of noise and you're not using something like StreamYard like we are right now, you might be combating some of that in post, more so than a dynamic mic would do. And then as far as XLR mics, I absolutely love the Electro Voice RE20. This is like the broadcast industry standard. This has been in every radio studio I've ever been in my career. And then the Shure SM7B, which we were just talking about, is another really popular podcast mic. Both of those, they have slightly different sounds to them. I want to say the Shure SM7B is more like, it has more of a, this is really hard to explain in words, but like it just has a different sound. They both sound different, and depending on your voice, when you use it, if you try it, you'll know like, oh yeah, I like how I sound in this versus the other, and you might have your opinion that way. But both of those microphones are very expensive though. This one is $450. The SM7B is $400, so that's kind of pricey. There are lesser expensive alternatives. Electro Voice actually makes an RE320, which looks identical to this one, and I guess they made it cheaper. I think that one's like $330, so it's a little bit less. And then if you're really on, and then Shure has another one, the MV7X, which I believe is a cheaper alternative to the SM7B as well. But if you're really on a budget, I have to say the SM58, which is like the microphone you see at concerts that, musicians are using live on stage, actually works really well in studios too. If you have like a stand for it, it's like $100 microphone, and if you plug it into a Scarlett Focusrite interface or something, it's pretty much like 90% of the way toward an SM7B. So you can save some money in doing that as well. That gets me to the next thing, USB interface or using an actual standalone recorder, because there are like recorders as well. And I actually like to use the recorders because I'm typically suggesting them for other people that are podcasting and don't have the computer know-how to like, I don't trust them running software to keep things working right. I'll end up with nothing being recorded, which is obviously not good. So Zoom makes some affordable options, but I have to say I'm like really disappointed with their quality control lately. I don't know what's going on. Like I've had a lot of issues with their recorders, unfortunately. I'm using a Rode Rodecaster Pro 2, and I actually have the original Rodecaster Pro as well, and they both work really well. Those aren't perfect either. I've had, if you're depending on the recording on the SD card, sometimes I get like little skips here and there, which is not ideal. So again, I actually like redundancy. I like to record on a hardware external recorder and on a computer or something like that. I just think that's, I've had too many lost recordings to not have backups these days.
Yeah. I carried at one point back in the early days of podcasting, I think even before it was in iTunes, way back then, I ended up using a Marantz. I want to say it's a huge chunky thing. Huge. Yeah. I remember, and I think, why is this thing so damn big? It's huge.
If you want to go like the high end, I actually would be curious because, everybody tries to make these lists with like, well, if you're on a budget and you want to do the cheapest thing, I'm kind of curious about doing like a list of like money is no option. Let's just dive, the sky is the limit, right? Because
might as well.
Because there's also like, and this isn't even really sky's the limit. This is just a lot more expensive than the Zoom or the Rodecaster even. But sound devices make some great quality hardware recorders too. The Mix Pre's are really nice. So you could look at those if you have the money for them, but I don't blame you if you don't. So, and then of course you've got like, the other thing I was going to mention is services like this to record podcasts. StreamYard is great because it can take all the sources. It gives you multi-channel, multi-track, so the editor can, it's not like Zoom where everything is low quality or mixed down into a stereo track. If you are using Zoom though, there is an option you can enable to record each participant separately.
So first, and again, disclosure, they StreamYard does sponsor the streams and the shows.
Yes.
But yeah, it's seamless. They've got the ability to set up a recording. Each particular person has a video and audio recorded locally in this option, as well as an amalgamated feed. And I learned this in the first podcast we did. StreamYard has an option to export to 3 popular video editors: Premiere, Final Cut, and DaVinci Resolve. And so you can, I don't know what the terminology is, but basically you can better stage the recording in any one of those flagship video editors, like just by downloading whatever the file is.
That's amazing.
So it was nice when I told the editors, I'm like, hey, which one do y'all use? Do you want me to download this file for you? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I didn't hear any complaints. So yeah, StreamYard does a fairly good job as far as staging podcasts and multiple people from different locations.
And audio. I would love it if everyone could get on board and use a service like StreamYard. The problem is, and no knock against StreamYard because they do amazing work with all of this stuff, of course, but it has to use a certain browser. It needs to be on the computer. Yeah. I run into a lot of people that don't even have computers anymore. They're just on tablets and phones.
Wow.
And they're like, well, how can I get into the show? I'm the guest. And it's like, well, okay, we can't use it then. We got to go use Zoom or something. So that's why I'm always looking at these solutions like, how can we get them to record audio that's decent?
StreamYard, I get it on mobile all the time. Like, I stream IRL, mobile, constantly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so,
you're right. I've done that before, too. Does it record, though?
Yeah, you should be able to. If you can join this session, you should be able to. Yeah, it's all web-based. So I can't speak for other platforms, but I can tell you that, yeah, it's viable on what you're talking about now that you've explained it. Yeah, it's turnkey.
I should say I am going to be definitely playing around more with StreamYard for other projects that I'm involved in as well, because this could be a great solution for what I've been looking for, But I don't know. Sometimes you would be surprised though by how much stuff like throws people and like they don't know how to use it, and then they're just like, well, can we just use Zoom? And I'm like, yeah. Because I have this happen all the time where I'm like, I think I've got the perfect thing, and then everyone has to yuck my yum, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
C'est la vie is an audio producer.
What?
C'est la vie is an audio producer.
Yeah. But I will definitely, I'm going to try and run this by some people because I think this would be a great solution. I would love it if this would work for all of those things. So it comes down to they call it double end recording, where like I have everyone record locally and they send their tracks in. And yeah, that's what this does, right?
That's what it does.
There you go. So that's going to be a great option then for a lot of people for sure.
Well, because it's higher quality. So like when I'm talking, the editors could take the local recording that was done and then use that audio and or video that's of higher quality than the amalgamated set, this hard grid. Yeah. And then they could do different layout options, right? Throughout any particular, in post, they've got options versus just recording a flat video, same audio track, same grid layout. They're using something like, and again, this isn't necessarily a sponsor pitch. There may very well be alternatives. It's just that StreamYard makes it a more viable option for being able to do post-production work with video recordings when you got people connecting from all around the world.
All right, pick up StreamYard and an internet near you.
I'm telling you, you've got a referral link. We do, for sure.
There you go.
We use it for the live stream on Twitch as well as the MakerDeck 24/7 3D printing stream on Twitch. But there's a reason we use it. Like it's, as far as I'm concerned, like right up there, if not best in class, because of the flexibility of options that it gives you.
God, I just realized I could have gotten out of this whole list so easily. I could have just been like, I had this whole top 10 list of tips. But StreamYard takes care of all of it. So just use StreamYard. I'm done.
I'm just saying.
No,
it even does the noise cancellation, so no more clapping around the room.
Cancellation.
It does. The automatic.
I will say this is one of my tips. I think this might be further down the list. I'm not sure. It doesn't matter. Wear headphones, please. For the love of God, wear headphones. I was gonna say. I saw the video. I didn't notice in Chris's video on the last episode that he was actually wearing something. And so I didn't want to like step on any toes. I'm like, well, wear headphones if, but no, please just wear headphones, because even if this has echo cancellation, that's great for having a conversation. But if you're listening to it later, you're going to hear voices cutting out because it has to cut the audio out to keep the echo from. So just find a good, and then also on the topic of headphones, you can wear earbuds. They're fine. The thing, what Chris is wearing now is great. That works. Just avoid like open back headphones, like the headphones that you can literally like see through, because if you have it turned up loud enough to hear yourself the way you want to hear yourself, that's like having a speaker on. It's just going to come right back through the mic. So, okay, there was that. What else did I have on my list here? Oh yeah, check levels beforehand. If you're recording locally, like that's really important as well. I know if you're gonna skew one way or the other, go on the low side, because if you're going too hot, it's gonna clip and it's gonna be printed in the audio with that distortion. Like no good. So I don't know. I think this is kind of subjective and it depends on who you ask maybe, but I would say like depending on the level meter you're looking at, if you're like, some of them have colors, if you're just bouncing into the yellow, that's good. Or if you're between like -12 and -6 at the highest point, that is good. But again, if you're a little on the low side, it's okay. If it's too low though, you're going to start, when you amplify it in editing, you're going to end up amplifying the preamp noise too. And that's not great either. And then the next thing I have is AI transcription and editing tools. AI is a big thing. Descript is my favorite of those. Descript is doing updates literally every 5 minutes. I don't know why. Every time I launch the program, it says I need to install another update. It's actually mildly infuriating, but more power to them. They have a lot of people working on that team. I think the best part of the script is that it gives you a full transcript, so you can go search through things. You can make notes on it. I don't know if I would count on the auto editing stuff quite yet. I haven't actually even dared play around with it that much because I use this stuff for work. I don't really want to mess with it. I would rather just do the cuts myself and know they sound good, because basically if I use AI to do like cut out like ahs, it offers to do that kind of stuff. If I use that, I know I'm going to have to listen to it very carefully through the whole episode anyway. So I kind of already have my workflow set up where like I'm just going to do it when I'm listening to it, and it doesn't necessarily save me a ton of time. But if you're someone who doesn't have, depending on where you're at with your podcasting, it could be really beneficial for you, and it might be worth something to, play around with and try, I guess. But I like it for the notes and the transcription and searching. That all is great. And then getting into the editing software, or the DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, you can do a lot of what you need to with free programs out there. Audacity is one of my favorite ones. I've used that for many, many years. GarageBand also comes free with the Mac, so you can utilize that. GarageBand is actually pretty much a stripped down version of Logic Pro, which is a very capable program. I actually use Logic most of the time when I edit my stuff, which is not the conventional, traditional thing that most podcast editors use, I don't think. I think mainly music producers use Logic, but I don't know. I find it quicker for what I like to do, but Pro Tools is obviously like king still. If you're going to be working with any audio editor, they're going to be familiar with Pro Tools. If you encounter a podcast editor that says, "Oh, I edit in Premiere," just run away.
Wow.
I mean, Premiere for audio only, I'm saying.
It's overkill, or just
it's
just doesn't have the tool set?
It's bad for just audio. Like, if you're doing video, then yes, Premiere is a great option. I should have clarified that first. If they're just doing audio and they use Premiere, it's like, no, there's much better options.
Right. It's kind of like using, Microsoft Word and, to do calculations instead of, Excel.
Yeah, right.
Different tools.
You're basically
modalities.
Like, they're clearly a video editor who's just moonlighting as audio, which
right.
could be fine, but, you just don't. I mean, it's also hard because Premiere, from what I know, like, does it by frames. So you don't have the granular control over audio that you do in Pro Tools or Logic or something that's made for audio, is my point. So I actually, with the video stuff I do, will edit stuff in Pro Tools or Logic and then take the thing that I've made, like, that I've worked on in those programs, and bring it over to sync it up with the video. So I don't know. I mean, it's not like it's wrong to do it that way. I'm just saying they might not be, I shouldn't have said run. God.
All good.
But anyway, just something to think about at least. And then plugins that I use, like, is, I obviously, if you do record things and it doesn't turn out the way that you would have liked, obviously you could try your hardest with all those other things I listed about trying to make everything perfect, and you're still going to end up with something that went wrong. You might have noise in the background. I mean, another tip, by the way, I think I only had 9 tips because I was going to talk about XLR cables, and I thought, like,
slacker.
I know. My other tip, don't record with a bird in the background. See? What did I just do?
Jeez.
She just went flying. Where did she land? You got to see
I missed it. I saw something fly into the frame, and that was it. As long as it's not a bat.
I just freaked her out, and she landed on a picture.
How'd you freak her out? You were just talking.
I just got really excited for a second, and she was like, "What's going on?" I'm gonna
plugins.
Yeah, I got all excited about plugins, and now I have to hang on. All right. At least this boom extends. Yeah, maybe don't record with birds in the background because they're noisy.
Good tip.
But I was going to say, okay, to flesh out my 10, if you want to, I think the XLR cable, I'm still kind of trying to figure things out, but I think basically the really expensive cables are not worth it. The really cheap ones, though, are probably also not worth it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense.
I think I know a lot of people, again, with the DIY crowd, make their own cables, which I don't trust myself to make cables that would sound any good. But that's an option, too, if you want to look into that and save some money. But I don't think it's enough money to make it worth it to me, personally. But yeah, I think actually the Amazon Basics cables aren't too bad. So I may come to regret this in the future, saying that, but we'll see.
We'll hold it against you.
I think actually the more important thing is taking care of your cables, which is actually, you have to look up. There's a certain way to, and it's hard for me to explain, there's a certain way to wrap them. You don't want to wrap them like power cables around your elbow. You want to, like, gently kind of coil them, like let them coil, kind of follow, don't force them into a shape they don't want to be in. And I'm sure there's YouTube videos that will illustrate that much better than I can explain it. So I think that covers my top 10 list. Oh, and when it comes to mics, the other thing I was going to say is I like I was thinking about this earlier. I like the saying, I think in the IT world, they say, like, no one ever got fired for X, right? Well, not X, because that's Elon's company.
People got fired from
People very much got fired for that one. I would trust audio brands first. Like, if you're looking at a microphone that's made by a computer company, maybe think twice about that. It might not be bad. I don't know if Beacon is an audio company or not, but it sounds good for Glendon. So I don't, it's like hard to make blanket statements about things because for some people they could work fine, but like you just never know. I just personally I want to go with like the audio companies. So
yeah, and kind of touching on that. So the mic that I'm currently using, I was going to try and use this, but the boom's not in tonight. But I'll touch on this in a second. Boom that I'm using now as Chris said, I believe last night when we were talking about it, but the microphone came with the boom, right? It was $50 for the entire setup. It's not the best. It does work. Like you can clearly hear me, but everything could be a little bit better. And I was working with you, Josh, last night, and or I guess it was this past weekend as well, and another member of our stream, Mike. Both of you I was working with in real time to try and figure out what my next upgrade would be, and you both eventually came down to the Yeti X, which is what this is.
Which is a condenser mic, actually. And I didn't know, like, Mike was the one that took the lead on that one, and I just kind of trusted him because he has it in his studio, and it seems to sound good for him. So, I mean, that's another thing, too. If you can look up the microphone you're wondering about and see if you can find any real-world examples of people using it, that's probably a good tip, too. If you like the sound coming out of it, then that's good,
Easily.
So I did have one more for you. So on your first point where you were talking about the sound deadening, Pirillo, but I learned this from a buddy of mine. His dad was a musician for a while, and he had all sorts of audio gear in his basement. A cheap way that he retrofitted his room that was in the basement at the time was using it's the paper, like mache kind of material, egg cartons. He would take the large square egg cartons and he would glue them or staple them to the wall, the entire thing, because you can get them fairly cheap or free with the eggs or whatever.
I've heard of that.
Now they're polystyrene most of the time, but the paper mache ones you can actually order on Amazon because people get eggs, obviously, and resell them. But, you could buy those or find them, again, like the large trays, and get the paper ones, and you can actually stick those on the wall. They work actually pretty well.
That's a great tip. That is, I actually have heard of that. I mean, they might not look the best, but...
No, they're not pretty, but they do work.
Right. But neither does, like, the foam that I have. Like, all this foam that I bought on Amazon and stuck all over the place probably doesn't look the greatest either, but...
Yeah, but it's audio, so who cares what it looks like, right?
But it's also out of my frame. Like, I guess if you're seeing this, like, you can see... I'm going to make everyone motion sick. You can see that. That's what I got.
Yeah.
And I put this up. I can't remember. Did I put this up before I put my my panels that I bought out, the expensive panels up? I don't know. But what am I doing?
Is that a cat stand that you've got the speaker on? Like a cat?
No, it's just to go on my monitor. I was putting my phone up the wrong way. This beer is great.
It's amazing.
Amazing.
I'll let you know how mine is once it's gone.
Yeah,
so,
mine's definitely gone.
Yeah. So I think that covers everything that I wanted to mention. Again, I want to go back to the Premiere thing. I didn't mean to,
You're fine. I think it's. I understood what you were saying.
It's just not using the right tool for the job.
Exactly. Yeah. No.
And I think like they're probably like, it's probably worse for them actually. They don't even know it. To try and edit audio when you don't have video to worry about. Like, it's like Premiere. I just hate using Premiere if I don't have to.
Yeah. Everyone's got a different path.
But again, everyone has a different path. Everyone has different preferences. Like I said, I'm not walking the same path a lot of people do, sticking to my Logic Pro nonsense. I know a lot of people that I talk to will be like, if you're not on Pro Tools, then, you're, what the heck are you doing? And I like Pro Tools too. I'm getting more and more familiar with it all the time, but sometimes things just, you have a good rapport with something.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Josh. Appreciate you sharing that perspective. I'm sure that many people who have not yet made a decision or were asking like what they should do have got a little more direction than they would have had before. So I appreciate the guidance. And the next time I need to get a mic, I'll be asking you because I
your
suck
mic
at
sounds
choosing things.
Your mic
Well,
sounds
yeah, no,
good.
I'm
You
good right
know
now.
what's
I'm
good.
yeah. No, I'm fine. When it comes to production, my level of production is, does anybody complain? If the answer is no, then I'm fine. Like, I'm just like, I'm good. That's it. That's all I need. That's my.
As you know, Chris, people don't necessarily complain.
Yeah, but they do. Oh, trust me, you haven't seen anything because I get tons of freaking complaints. Oh, your mic was this, your mic was that. I'm like, oh God, okay, your camera was a potato. Blah 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 blah. No, I see all the negative feedback. So I'm having seen it. When I don't see it, I know I'm doing well, for the most part. Unless I don't see any feedback, and then I know, okay, something's really bad.
The Moldovans have stopped watching.
Exactly, all four.
Oh no.
Right. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to point out, I don't know if I made this clear in the beginning, the problem with the actual Apple Watch complication for weather. It just it will just give you dashes and won't load. That is the problem that a lot of people are complaining about, and I had this too, where just it will several times a day for like an hour at a time, it will not give you any information. It will just be dashes. So that is the problem that I was illustrating earlier, that you need to go into your location settings and actually toggle it back and forth. And it's like, and then stand on your head and, you know, do a chant.
Pray. Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's Apple software, and there's no prayer for it. There's no patron saint of Apple software. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate the again the perspective. Glendon.
Yes.
You got some. I'm monitoring you.
Oh.
Get it because your list is about monitoring, right?
You must have a good one, or you wouldn't be able to see me that well.
So I'm saying I was watching Josh.
Yeah.
But I'm monitoring you.
I see what you're doing there. I see what you're doing.
You saw really.
Moldovans are back.
Yeah. They're back. Yes. What I'm going to be going over today is my top 10 tips or reasons that you could consider before purchasing a gaming monitor or just a monitor in general, you know, for professional use. Excuse me. So a lot of people feel that it's just, in past times they did anyway. I think people are becoming a lot more cognizant of it now with the new technologies, but the monitor was just an afterthought for most people, especially whenever it was a CRT monitor, because they were all pretty good performers. Some had a lot more color accuracy, some than others did, but you're going to get a constant 60 hertz out of those because that's just what they run at. So a lot of people took that for granted up until flat panels started to come into play. And that's whenever a lot of people now started paying attention to the hertz rate of their monitors, because you can definitely tell a difference 60 and sub 60. And then a lot of people can see it above 60, which is like myself. So that's my first topic is the refresh rate. If you're looking to be playing a lot of games, especially competitive gaming, you're going to want every edge that you can get, right? So squeaking out every frame per second that you can on a monitor that makes it visible for you, you're going to just benefit from it greatly, right?
So higher FPS.
Higher FPS, right? Well, your higher visible FPS,
right?
And that coincides with the second point, which is response time. The response time determines how quickly the pixels can change their color. Faster response times can reduce ghosting and motion blur in fast-paced games. So
it'll help people call me back.
Right.
Because, they ghost me so often, and I just can't. So I need a higher response, because that literally is, it's a higher response time. It literally, they ghost me, and I Okay.
Can't imagine why.
I'm so glad you're not the only one with that problem.
Can't imagine
Man.
why.
Sorry.
It
For
goes
response
all the time.
What? So I will let you finish your tip, but I definitely want to hear like what a good average is or what an average might be for response time.
Well, response time for me is going to be like a gray to gray, which is the color scale, like 1 millisecond. That's what you're really looking for. And then sub, 5 milliseconds for the color accuracy. But yeah, most high-end monitors need to hit that 1 millisecond gray to gray response time.
Do you have to clap to find that out?
No, you don't have to. But you can if you would like. There's nothing wrong with clapping. But
You video yourself clapping and then you play it on the monitor. Okay.
Yeah, no, not so much. No.
All right, carry on.
Okay. All right, but yes, the faster the response time, the better off that you're going to be whenever it comes to playing your games. Response time meaning how quickly you make a movement using your controller as to how quickly it responds and it's seen on the screen. So you want those to be as exactly close to 0, which means no difference. So the next thing to consider is going to be the size of your monitor. And this goes into competitive gaming again as well. The size of the monitor can help you or hinder you. Smaller ones tend to be better if you're playing games because there's less head movement that you have to do back and forth. So a lot of your high-end gamers, competitive gamers, I should say, they use smaller monitors. That way that it's less time for them to have to track the motion of what's going on the screen. As opposed to somebody using a 50-inch screen, and if you're at a table or even a reasonably close distance, you're going to have to move your head. So,
wait, so can I be a better gamer if I have a smaller monitor?
Possibly. Your response time could be better.
Right.
You couldn't get a monitor small enough to make me a better gamer. Like it's just maybe postage stamp size, and I'd be great.
Right. You can try that too.
Mm-hmm. Getting that FPS in Tetris. That's what you
get.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's so funny you say that because I just started having to use my monitors in, I think I mentioned to you about the issues I had with scaling the resolution. Because I have 4K monitors, and so the 1-to-1 comparison is to run them like 1080p monitors or 2160 monitors. When I'm running them as 2160, I notice that I have to okay, I got to get the pointer to the other side of the display, and it takes forever. So that's interesting.
Yep, same thing can happen with playing the game. So, and then that goes back into your response time, and then you've got liftoff, and there's different things that you have to take into consideration at that point. But, yep, you're exactly right with that, Josh.
Do they still use high-end CRTs in competitive gaming, or if those...
I don't see them anymore, especially now since there's refresh rates that are over 500 megahertz now on TN panels.
Because I would say about 8 to 10 years ago, sometimes you could see them, but I think it was the 900 or 9000 series.
Yeah.
Was the 900s.
And the reason I think that they've stopped now is because obviously there's no connector for it.
Yeah.
Or HDMI or DVI. I'm sorry, not DVI, but DisplayPort. And if you wanted to use one of them, then you would have to go through converters or connectors, and then that could even slow or lower the response time of the input that you're doing on your device. So I think that's why because it's going to introduce some input lag. Yep.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I think the analog chipset is just completely gone off of them.
Yeah.
There's no even processing for it.
Right.
Interesting. Good point.
The next one would be the panel type. The panel type can vary in strengths and weaknesses. Like I said a while ago, a TN panel, which is a twisted pneumatic. There's IPS or a VA, and even now OLEDs are becoming more prominent in gaming. IPS up until OLED was probably your best in response time. I'm sorry, not response time, but resolution and viewing angles, meaning you didn't have to be directly in front of the television or your monitor to enjoy what the scene was supposed to look like throughout the entire picture. So instead of having to sit directly in front of your monitor, if you got to about 75 degrees, everything would wash out and turn gray and white and you couldn't see the screen well. So that is a TN panel for the most part. They're meant to be displayed straight on. And you can test that usually just with your eyes if you just want to shift your head, and see if it does change. Then odds are if it does, it's a TN panel. You wouldn't experience that from an OLED or an IPS screen. It may dim a little bit with a VA, but nothing like a TN. So anybody have a question? Chris?
No, I don't have a question, but you're talking IPS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have to PS. Again, this is
Again.
very good beer.
There's only one beer.
It was
Wow.
like freaking can.
This was
dude.
his first beer.
It was
This
my
is all
only
still
beer.
based on the first beer.
I'm gonna IP in my chair.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Well,
Just
we
wait
can
for that.
waste
Anything
some
with
time
E to get
until he
mentioned.
gets back.
Hey, Glendon, I had a question for you.
Hey,
What about-
Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, what about G-Sync and FreeSync?
Yeah, what about them, pal?
Yeah, can you tell me about those?
Yeah, I'll tell you about them.
Okay.
Is that is your list anyway?
Yeah, it's on my
next
list.
thing
All
in
right.
It's on my list.
Well, I'll ask him. That's not something that's potentially in his list.
Yeah.
So was
G-Sync, FreeSync is a variable refresh rate. How about that?
G-Sync.
Yeah.
he
in a
answered your
nutshell.
question, and you've got more. He's answered your question. You've got more questions now.
It's all right. We can go over
No,
that
what were
too.
you gonna ask, Brad?
For IPS panels, were they more color accurate over VA panels
Yes.
before OLEDs? Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's what I
IPS
thought.
was the choice for viewing angles and color accuracy for the most part.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I'm still on my computer rig from 2016. I've done very little upgrades from it. And I bought an AOC IPS monitor. It's 60 hertz, 1080p. I think it's 27 inch. Still works fine. Would I like higher refresh rate? Yes. Would I like higher resolution? Yes. But at the time, IPS was the most color accurate. It was a budget-friendly monitor, and it's worked fine. But it's time for an upgrade soon. So
Yeah, and I recommend OLED.
OLED's where it's at. It's just a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
But it's worth it in the long run. Because
They're
less
starting to
expensive.
come down in price now.
Yeah, still less
Considerably.
expensive than micro LED.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and I touched on this on the last podcast too, but if you build a computer, let's say you save for a while and you build a computer that's new everything to the market, new GPU, new CPU, max out your RAM, motherboard, whatever it may be, your mileage on that PC is going to last longer. So
Right.
if you build a computer today for $2,500, $3,000, and you get over 10 years of use out of it, cost of ownership is cheaper than building a cheap PC and going long term. And you can obviously upgrade your monitor long term. So it's just time for an upgrade for myself, I guess. Good enough.
Yeah, it is. Chris, you're back.
Yeah, this guy's back.
I am.
Did everything free
It
sync
functioned.
for you?
Yes.
Go freely?
I G-synced and FreeSynced. G-Sync is
no.
that NVIDIA and FreeSync wasn't that AMD originally, but then
Yeah. They
more
both
general.
still are two different technologies for variable refresh rate, which means your graphics card gets in perfect tandem with your gaming graphics card and to your monitor. So that eliminates your screen tearing or the slowdown or the stutter that you might see. A lot of people are susceptible to that. I know I am personally. So if I'm playing a game that my graphics card is having a little trouble keeping up with and I can see the tearing, then I will make sure that I enable that if I don't want to lose any eye candy, right? So you could drop your settings in the game and boost your frames per second, or you can use that technology that cycles them together at the same time, and it doesn't look like there's anything happening to it at all. And you're running at least a steady 60 hertz refresh rate.
And I wasn't meaning to jump on your list. As I was walking away, I heard Josh do it, so I wanted to make sure that was Cap.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Both of you.
I really
it was an intuitive question, so
no, it wasn't.
I get it.
Not for me. Not for me.
I was trying to save you, Josh, but you just threw yourself under the bus.
I'm really good at
and we all
watch. My number one skill, throwing myself under the bus.
Hey, put that on your
Someone's
resume.
Gonna do it.
Hey.
Yeah.
Better you than me.
And with the another thing with the FreeSync and the G-Sync, you're going to have a range of how good, or not how good, but a range of what hertz that technology is going to work. So for G-Sync now, I think that it goes up to 175 hertz on certain monitors. From 60 to 175. Within that range, it's capable of keeping your screen from tearing. And then I think with AMD's answer, the FreeSync, you can achieve 144.
And the tearing, that's basically when, like, you've got a flat image, but then it
right
shifts.
Yeah, it shifts up and down. Yep.
Shifts, right?
Or splits off.
Vertically.
Yep. But it's always going to be vertical.
This is actually like giving me PTSD in a way to when I had a PowerBook G4. I had the worst problem for some reason with DVDs that I was playing on it, tearing. Like, I would have the worst tearing playing any DVD. And I didn't know what it was at the time, so I was going to, like, computer shop to try and show them this, and, like, they weren't getting it. And, oh, man, it's I'm sensitive to that, too, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I really am. So anytime that I can use that technology with FreeSync or G-Sync, I always turn it on and make sure it's enabled. The good thing about FreeSync, it's exactly what it is. It's free, means it's open source. It actually works on both AMD cards and NVIDIA cards, but it's now becoming normal for G-Sync to do the same thing. It's compatible back and forth on AMD or NVIDIA products.
But even beyond that, I've got FreeSync monitors now, and they're connected to a MacBook 16-inch,
right?
By way of a Thunderbolt cable through a dock. But they're both pushing 144 on. And what are these aren't 4K. They're not. These are
those are 1440p monitors.
Yeah,
so there's 2K.
2K, yeah. So I got two 2K displays. It just made sense to do two displays in my particular setup, and it wasn't originally here at the time. But I will say this, even though the new MacBook, right? Or sorry, not new. The M1 MacBook does not have AMD or G
no.
NVIDIA graphics in it. Yeah, it'll still power, and FreeSync is fully compatible with it. And it's gotten better over time with macOS support.
Yep. So it uses its own version, I think, from what I understand, a variable refresh rate on their processors, but it's still within the specs of those monitors. So you're still going to benefit.
No, it's
from
not.
It,
It's not.
using a Mac.
It was originally a couple Mac OS versions ago. Their variable refresh rate would always trip on. It just I'd said no. I wanted to lock at. I think at that time I was locked at 100 or 120, whatever it was. I said, no, just stay here, don't move. And then it would always revert. And then the previous version of macOS fixed it so that you could just have the fixed or the locked refresh rate. and you can even toggle that. I think I was at 120 until I realized I could toggle something else and go to 144. And so I ended up going to 144, and but I can tell you, as much of a frame rate guy as I am, I'd be hard pressed to tell you the difference between a 120 and a 144 even side by side. They're negligible. Like at that point, 90 and 120 I can see, but 120 and 144 I'm not sure. Visually I can't pick up the differences.
I'm the same way.
I can't either. But definitely sub 120.
Yes.
I can definitely see. Because I can't do 60 hertz screens anymore.
Nope. Oh, another fun fact: if you have one of the new iPhone 15 Pros or 14 Pro or one of the Pro iPhones since they started with ProMotion, if you want to experience the 60 frames per second again, just turn on low power mode. It's brutal.
Yep.
Awful.
Ooh. Yeah.
Well, you can turn off. I think you can toggle it beyond going low power mode. There's another toggle for reducing the frame rate. Yeah, you can nerf
reduce motion, maybe.
No, reduce motion will make it such that the animation or the transitions.
Oh, right, the transitions.
They'll fade instead of
right.
Moving.
Yes,
they fade. So I turned that on. That's how I know that one, because I turned that on for sure.
My big issue is not so much with the screens anymore, but with movies and TV shows. That the fact that they're filmed in 24, I think it's 24, 25, up to 30 frames per second. And I mean, they still look watchable, right? But you can go on YouTube today and watch a 1080p 60 versus 1080p 30. And it's a world of difference. I understand there's data limitations for filming and it's a lot more data, but if we were even able to get movies today in 1080p 60 or 4K 60, again, the media is going to be more expensive, but the content or the quality content that you're taking in is substantially better. But it's a little frustrating that we've got these high hertz refresh rates, but
right.
Consoles, for example, you're watching stuff on Netflix, 24 to 30 frames per second. And when you're playing video games, depending on the game itself, it might not even hit the 60 FPS. It's just, 60 or 120. I guess the modern consoles can go up to 120. But
they can go up to 120. But there's another thing going on there that they do in the software end that is dynamic resolution scaling, to where if you're playing a game and in order for it to stay at that 120 hertz or 120 frames per second refresh rate, it will dynamically throughout the time period of the game during graphical intensive scenes drop the resolution from 4K to 1440p. You don't really see it because it's blended well and it's quick, but unless it's an extended scene, it doesn't stay there. It just fluctuates whatever it needs to keep that 120 frames per second. So you may say that you're playing at 4K, but it may not be all of the time, just depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some sort of a upscaling in the background happening for sure. Yeah. So I do recall that. It's interesting.
Yeah, they're actually using the AMD FreeSync technology in all the new consoles because it's powered by a AMD AGP. So both consoles are the Xbox and the PlayStation 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
Also, real quick, Chris is right. There is an option under accessibility and under motion that is in addition to reduce motion, it's limit frame rate. There's a toggle.
Yeah, that's what it is.
On the iPad, I think it was where you would have to originally turn off, what is it, the ProMotion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a toggle for that. Yeah.
I'm not even on the desktop doing that. Like, why? What's the purpose to do that? Like, why is this
battery life for me on the mobile devices?
All right, I guess so.
Yeah, it takes more power to push those frames per second at those hertz.
Fair enough.
But 60 frames per second definitely hurts.
It does hurt.
It does. So does 120.
120 is good. I can do 120.
Yeah,
it doesn't hurt as much.
It still hurts.
Really? It doesn't hurt. Well, I guess technically speaking, it does hurt.
Yes.
Go into the weeds.
All right. So the next point that I want to make, while you're on your journey to get a new monitor, is HDR important to you? It's super important to me now, because once you go to HDR and you get to see real HDR content on a screen that is certified VESA HDR, and can reach those certain levels of luminance, you never want to go back. I don't want to. So HDR, it's going to enhance the colors and make them more immersive while you're gaming or you're watching your content. Your brights, like reflections, those are going to stand out more. The skyline during the sunset, it's going to be brighter at the sun, as opposed to having, lesser contrast throughout the rest of the screen. And that's why it's called high dynamic range. Exactly. So it just boosts the range of the light that's visible to you. It makes it brighter in certain areas on the screen. What about you guys? Do you use HDR? Any of you?
Yeah, remember we were fiddling with that earlier this week on the Twitch stream, but I just couldn't get the image to look great. It just didn't. It did not bowl me over. Like I was like, oh, I can't live without it now. It just didn't work for me. Maybe I'll go back to it again on the external screens, but either the text was too sharp or it was too fuzzy. I couldn't find the sweet spot. Right. Again, maybe it's just a matter of setting it, not thinking about it for a day, and then continuing to try it just to acclimate to the difference in what the what the image is. But even after watching HDR content, honestly, like I said, I'm willing to chalk that up to probably not having the best HDR compatible displays.
Yeah.
Because it in many ways looked worse, not better for me.
Yeah. The time that I saw HDR work its magic on me was whenever I first saw it on an OLED. On an OLED, it stands out much more than it would on a TN, VA, or an IPS panel, because with an OLED, the screen can turn completely off for its darks, for its blacks.
Or you mean the pixels can turn on and off?
Pixel completely turns off, not physically the television or the monitor.
Right.
But each one of those pixels are individually lit. It's an organic light emitting diode is what the OLED stands for. So whenever the pixel turns off and then you've got something that's right next to it that's white and super bright, that contrast is going to really stand out. So an OLED is where it's at currently, or a micro LED for HDR content. And it ranges from 400 being the scale. There's a number from 400 all the way up to, I think there's a 1200 now for the VESA standards for HDR content. You don't really get any benefit of it at 400 or 600. Once you get above the 600 nits range on that scale, that's whenever you can really see the HDR stand out. So anything on 1000 and up, you're really going to notice the HDR and have a better experience.
I actually have a theory about the iPhone's HDR. When I take pictures in HDR, I swear, because the screen is HDR, so it's displaying an HDR version of the photo.
Right.
I swear it can hide imperfections better, because the brightness of the brights is so high that I can't see that it's not as sharp as it could be, or over sharpened, or whatever the case may be. It actually makes the pictures look better, but not really because they're better. It's because they're just brighter.
Right.
Yeah. See, that's the thing is taking those photos and seeing them on the iPhone screen almost seems too bright, too contrasting. I have that issue with Pixel Pro, and I'll come back to that. But when I view those or even upload those photos to social or view them somewhere, on the desktop, they just don't look as good. And it's
good.
It's a screen, but that to me is a huge limitation to taking those shots that may look good on some screens, but look absolutely ghastly on others.
Yeah, and a lot of times that can be blamed on two different things. Like you said, one, the monitor or the screen that you're using or the television is not certified at a higher rate or a higher number like I made reference to. If it's not, then you're not going to have as much contrast. But the most important thing is how the content is mastered. Excuse me. So what I'm saying by that is how well they implemented HDR into the game or into the movie or into the show that you're watching. That can really impact your HDR experience as well. And how well you calibrate your HDR. Whenever you get a new monitor, usually there's a calibration that you can go to, or you get a calibration sheet that's sent with your monitor, like I did on my particular one, showing me how it was set up and where it ranked at on the scales for HDR, as well as, Adobe for the color accuracy for the sRGB. Josh, you need to go, bud?
Oh, yeah, I'm probably going to have to hop off.
Okay. That's fine.
All good.
No worries.
But I feel like this podcast could be like, we could almost create like a progress bar.
Yeah.
Of the podcast.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
And it may very well be that we learn that 4 people is a good amount of people for a podcast.
Yeah.
5 is always good for a buffer, but I feel 4 we're learning. What do you know?
Yeah.
Like 4
learning
maybe,
experience.
4 may be where we shoot for. And it's learning. You got to go, Josh. Thank you. Appreciate you hanging.
No, thank you. It's been
Joining.
fun.
Yes, it has. Thank you. Love
Yep,
for the bird.
see you, Josh.
That's it. Josh is gone. Come go. Are you
Just like that? Just like that.
He's hanging on. He's got something else to say.
He's like, you're making this awkward, dude. This is like, it was like we were like segueing.
See you, bud.
See ya.
All right, Glendon, you got more?
Yeah, I got one more, and then that'll be it for mine. To me, the number one thing is going to be cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Always make sure that you have a budget. Most people have a budget anyway, and you're going to need to set up and find a happy medium for what your needs may be or what your wants are, and compare it to what the capabilities of your hardware on your system can do, and stay within those parameters. Because if you have a GTX, a 4060, then it's probably not the best idea for you to run out and try to find a 4K monitor that runs at a 240 hertz refresh rate, because you're going to benefit absolutely zero from having that monitor, right? So shop within the limits and the constraints that you have with your hardware. And you're going to learn that at that level, a 1080p monitor is going to be perfectly fine for you. And you can get great OLED IPS monitors for, thousands cheaper, hundreds cheaper than an OLED panel that's doing 240 hertz.
Yeah, that's been my reason for not upgrading yet. I'm still waiting for that OLED to drop in price. Obviously, I need to build a new computer. Well, I don't need to, but I want to. But that's one of the determining factors, is that I want to replace my monitor as well, potentially go to 4K. And 4K OLED, 120 hertz, it's a big premium right now. It's a big chunk of change. So the technology's out. It's eventually going to get cheaper. But when is the question.
Right. And that's potentially, it's a law of diminishing returns, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big deal.
Yeah, and we're seeing the trend now we're at the sub $1,000 point on these monitors, you know, depending upon the size and the specs of how fast they go and the HCR. But yeah, you can see that that's starting to be a little bit of a trend. I know right now everything's inflated, but that was what we were heading into before the inflation started. So
yeah, you know, I'd go for as much as I could afford. Every step of the way. Cram as much FPSs into my eyeballs as I can take.
Yeah, I want all the FPSs in my eyeballs.
The old adage of future proofing, there's been a debate online for eons. Is it a thing? Can you actually do it? My answer is kind of.
Yeah.
No computer. Yeah, remember what was the company? Was it EPC or something like that? The forever, you never have to upgrade your computer.
Yeah, the E-machines or something.
E-machine. Yeah, that was it. I mean, you can't buy a $200 computer back in the late 90s, early 2000s and expect to get 50 years of use out of it. At the same time, I mean, if you're going out and spending $500 on a computer, it'll last you, let's say, 4 years ish for modern, up-to-date gaming, high resolution, whatever it may be. If you spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on everything brand new, top of the line, you might get 8, 9, 10 years out of it before you have to upgrade that GPU or get a newer CPU, right? The sockets change, but you can buy that 10 core versus the 6 core you might have gotten, or an i5, or you're buying an i7 or an i9 instead of the i5 you've got. So you can do those incremental upgrades.
Yeah.
So future proofing, I think, is the thing, right? The more you spend up front, the less you're going to spend overall.
I agree.
In that time span. Yeah.
I take the same approach, or do my best, right? Can't always do it, right? But it is a balance, a delicate balance. That's
the reason why the credit cards have limits.
Well, that is for sure. I'll be like, I'm not sure when I'm going to be upgrading my monitors again. I feel I can get another 2, 3, maybe even 4 years out of them before I'm like, okay, maybe it's time. So I'm hoping to, until they die, like basically like when they're done, and then I'll make the shift. And even then I may go back to just using one screen rather than having two. Two is just a nice to have, for background, but certainly having one is critical. Even in the current resolution, which I wasn't even sold on, I'd much rather have like a wider, taller display rather than I know some people love the the
ultra
super wide. Ultra wide, yeah. I did that for a brief while. And I don't think I could do an ultra wide again. I don't know. It was just different. Maybe it was just my head going there and then going this way, that way, and maybe it was the pitch, right? Of where the sharpness of the text wasn't, it was, things were jaggy. It wasn't perfect, but that was, again, it was the product. I don't blame the underlying technology or the idea of an ultra wide, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do next. Apart from, getting one with a high that's the only thing I care. Response time and refresh rate. Those are like, to me, number one, easily. Not even being a gamer. Those are the things that I look for. Easily.
Yeah, personally, I don't think I'll be doing an ultra wide. I mean, for gaming, they're great because your center of attention's in the center of the screen, and then the games will stretch. So in the peripheral, they look great.
Yeah.
But when you're working in, Office or Outlook or something, you're turning. That's not great for the neck and everything else.
Same thing you said for using 2 monitors, though.
That's true. Yeah.
I got 2. And 1, 2.
I've had 3 monitors before, and they personally at the time they scaled better, just because this was probably Windows 8. What was it? Vista through 7 era kind of thing. But, triple screen at the time I could do, research on one screen, my homework on the other, and YouTube or whatever's preoccupying me while I'm up and running. And the early ultra wides, when they were plugged into a Windows machine, they didn't have the triple software setup, so they would just kind of do a half screen. They've gotten better, but the aspect ratio was just way off. But again, that's changed with the newer monitors.
Yeah, with the newer ones, there's not that issue any longer, to where you can see like a a line where one monitor stopped and the other started, because essentially they were just shoving three, 1080p panels together and upping the resolution to a 1440.
Right.
But yeah, they've come a long way, even with the games and the formats now that we take in the content. They're mastered, for ultra wides now, both in gaming and then the way that even YouTube videos, you can get a 1440p or a 3440 by 1440 setting for the ultra wides.
Yep.
I'll probably stick with ultra slims, not ultra wides. I don't know. I think I'm good that way. It depends. I don't know I cannot predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen when I'm going to make my choice. I just know when I'm going to make it, I'm going to say, hey, Glendon, what do I get? I need to get need to get a new one. What do I get? Like, I don't want to do the research. Ain't nobody got time for that. Just tell me how.
Yeah, we do. We got time for it.
You got time for it. I just no, just tell me which one I need to get and I'm good and I'll be happy.
Nice quality TN panel will do you well.
Oh.
So I hear.
No, don't buy those.
Oh, okay. Well, because I was like, it didn't make sense to me. It's like, well, it kind of grays out if you look at it the wrong way. I'm like,
yeah, they're awful.
Sounds temperamental. All I've seen, honestly, is IPSs.
Mm-hmm.
They're
good screens.
Common enough that every other panel I see is IPS.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
At least
OLEDs aren't perfect. They've got their own weaknesses too. So
yeah,
goes
without saying. Thank you for the roundup. I appreciate it, Glendon. I'm speaking of roundup. I'm going to be rounding things up and moving into this the home stretch. I'm going to be talking at the end here of this podcast. I almost said Pixel, but I didn't, even though I'm holding on to the Pixel because that's what the topic's going to be about. This rounding out, not quite winding. Okay. Get on with it, Chris. This 3.5 hour podcast is now going to be finished up with my thoughts on the Pixel 8 Pro. And you have to pardon as I move my hand around and gesticulate wildly. And hopefully I'll not lean into the desk. And if you hear it crack, that's why. That's not my back. It's the desk. So I've been a Pixel user since the Pixel 2 XL. And I like the Pixel. It gave me, or at least afforded me, an opportunity to go from the iPhone outside the iPhone. And I'd used Android to that point and liked what was there design-wise, even back then, and thought there had to be something better than what Apple was providing us at the time with the release. I can't remember which version of iOS, but the iPhone 10 had just been released. And I was like, yeah, this is not it for me. Like the notch I thought was just outrageously bad, and still believe that. I think the Dynamic Island is a much better compromise of hardware and software kind of coming together. That's the way it should have been all along. I understand the technology wasn't necessarily there at that point. Either way, my stomach turned when I thought I would have to go that route if I was sticking with iOS, and I'd already been tired of iOS. So I went to the Pixel 2 or the 2 XL and was in love. The Pixel was a software story, kind of always has been a software story. And so I moved from a Pixel 2 XL to a 3 XL to a 4 XL, did not get the 5 because the 5 was more of a lateral move. So I stuck with the 4 XL for like 2 years, and then it basically died one night. And then I ended up moving to Samsung. I ended up getting the Pixel 6, 7, and now I have the 8. But the 6, 7, and 8 have been used as secondary devices, largely connected to a computer as a webcam, either using Re-Incubate Camo on macOS or Windows, which allows you to use either iOS and Android devices specifically as webcams. And pretty soon, Android itself, if you've got the newer, like cutting-edge beta builds today, you can mount the Android device as a webcam natively on your platform of choice. So they're baking some functionality, decent functionality at the OS level, but I still think Re-Incubate Camo has it, over the native version, if only because the native version, when I tried it, and granted this may be a beta thing, the screen would flash and people would complain because I use my Pixel 8 Pro, or I will be using my Pixel 8 Pro, previous to the Pixel 7 Pro, as a webcam pointed down at my 3D printer on my desk. So that's my primary use case. So I'm giving you a history of my upgrade path for the Pixels. The reason why I did not really find myself liking recent generation of Pixels has nothing to do with the hardware. Nothing at all. And I know some people flip for the hardware, and man, I got to tell you, it's an iconic design, the Pixel 8 Pro. I'm very happy with how it looks, on the surface, even though I will be putting a case on it. It's nice. It's a clean design. I like the fact that it doesn't rock when I lay it on the table, because it's an even back for the what would you call it? The camera, not a cutout, not a notch, but the camera bump, right? It's an even bump. And some phones don't have that. Like even with a case on my Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, it rocks. And that's kind of annoying when I have it on the desk and I'm doing something with it. So that, I know some people wouldn't necessarily call that out as a feature, but it's nice. Having that lack of incongruous nature of the bump has helped in those situations. And you don't realize when you don't realize you like that until you actually find yourself in a situation where you happen to be using it. So the Pixel to me has never been a hardware story. That's not what effectively pushed me away from it. Clearly, I'm holding on to a Pixel 8 Pro. I didn't have to buy it, but I found a use case for it. But in terms of a daily driver, it's not enough for me. So that's what I hope to outline here in the things that you need to know before you end up getting a Pixel 8 Pro, if you decide to get a Pixel 8 Pro. It's a Pixel. And of course, the software experience has evolved. It's a familiar experience, streamlined, very zippy to operate. But I got to tell you, I cannot feel the difference. I don't just mean weight-wise. I feel in the hand-wise, the back, the matte finish-wise, which I love. This is a nice. It feels really nice, the matte finish, admittedly. The zippiness on the Pixel 8 Pro is reminiscent of the 6 or the 7. To the point where I'm hard pressed to tell you, okay, I don't even think I can tell you that the Pixel 8 is demonstrably faster than the 7. It doesn't feel that much more responsive in terms of getting in and out. It feels, which is, by the way, a testament to the older hardware running the software. Like that's the software story more often than not. That's not the hardware. You can throw better hardware and maybe it gets marginally faster, but we've reached a point, and I'm not saying that everything's plateaued, but like with smartphones, whether we're talking about the iPhone or any Android devices, where the hardware is getting faster, yes, on paper, but the software getting faster-ish, kind of, but not really necessarily. So it's a familiar experience, streamlined, very zippy to operate, which, again, is a huge win. I feel like that's one of the reasons why I would consider a Pixel, is the fact that it is an uncluttered experience. I'm not saying it's pure Android, because I'm not even sure that really truly exists anymore. I know AOSP, but the Pixel is a pixelized or a Google take on the Android experience. It makes it very difficult to not want to use, because I love the zippiness, and I would say it feels maybe a hair zippier. The animations, the transitions, even with them bumped down in the developer settings from a 1.0 to a 0.5 animation speed, transition speed, it still feels zippier on the Pixel 8 Pro, 7, and 6 compared to an S23 Ultra, let's say. But it's a huge testament. So if you're looking for a zippy Android experience, there's possibly one that's better, but the best that I happen to have used at this point has been the Pixel series, part of the Pixel series. It's a good display. It's a good size in my hand. I mean, I know some people aren't big screen or big phone users, but I am. I got used to it. The phablet type of experience. I mean, I'd imagine there are some bigger and some smaller, but it feels right in my hand. Whether we're talking about the edges, which again, I'm going to be minimizing that impact because I'm going to be putting a case on this thing. But the display itself, in terms of what you're looking at, the graphics, it's a bright display, or certainly bright enough. I have not had a chance to really operate in sunlight because I'm in Seattle, so there hasn't been a lot of sunlight lately. Works really well in the rain, though. But the one thing I'll say to counteract that is that the on-screen whites, because of the display that they're using, are almost too white. Specifically when we're talking about HDR in the photos, when you're taking a shot. And I don't want to get into the details on this because quite honestly, I'm not an HDR nor am I a photo expert. But suffice it to say, the photos themselves turn out very well by comparison to their contemporaries. But the screen, and this is an HDR thing, I'm not used to the HDRness of HDR screens. Like, it's just, the whites are just so, like, to the point where they're like almost like headache-inducing, blindingly white. And there's no way to attenuate that impact, because you can choose from natural or vivid in the screen saturation or color settings, whatever the specific is in Android. I went through that. I'm on natural. I'm on just like, I just want something plain, simple, straightforward. I don't like the boosted colors. That's not it. The whites are very, very white, and I'm not sure I like that yet in a smartphone. And it could be that I just haven't gotten used to it, or I've just been accustomed to something else. But that was one thing that definitely jumped out at me. So I guess I'm very sensitive to too much white in not just a photo, but specifically on the screen. But, coming back to the photos, the Pixel, one of the things that I loved about the Pixel early on, almost immediately, were the photos. Like, you could take a bad shot. It was very hard to get a bad shot. Like, there was very little, if any at all, motion blur, which made it a perfect phone or a camera phone specifically for moving objects like pets or kids or babies or what have you. And so I'm glad that they went that direction with it. The Pixel's kind of lost that flavor over time, the Pixel look to it, the uber contrasty look, but has kind of yielded to a better balance of photos. The photos that I've taken, for the most part, you just, blindly in comparing against the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra as well as the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and posted these photos in social, certainly for all to see. The Pixel has impressed. Like, in almost every case, it has been a much more impressive photo, beginning to end. And maybe there have been a few exceptions, and that could have been because the lens didn't trip, the right lens didn't trip at the proper distance. Sometimes you have to wait a second, or you have to wait a beat for the lens to flip over. And I've run into issues with that. Less so on the Pixel than the iPhone, certainly. The iPhone's far more finicky as far as that goes. But I've taken night shots, low light shots, indoor shots, outdoor shots, and the Pixel 8 camera has been more impressive to me than the 6 or the 7. Not dramatically, insofar as I have had issues where taking shots where normally you'd expect HDR to trigger on some brighter spots, it gets blown out. So there may be some tweaking of the algorithm that they may or may not do. I don't know if Google's necessarily chasing that. But that's something that has been bothersome to me. And if HDR does not trip, especially in these high contrasted environments, that's something that actually annoys me greatly. So I'm not saying that would be the thing that would keep me from using the Pixel. It wouldn't. I would be very, very happy with using a Pixel camera to take the photos that I would normally take, or even the video that I would normally take. I have zero qualms. Not sure I like the camera app as much as what I've been accustomed to with the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, but it works. It is more than serviceable. It is ample, beyond ample, and it's something that if you were ever on the fence of should I get a Pixel, I don't know. It's good. It's a good software experience. It's a great photo experience. Those are honestly the foundations of what you should expect in a smartphone. And given that the Pixel, even though this is the 8 Pro, so it's got some Pro level features, on down the line down to the A series of products, that experience trickles down. It may not be as good, but it is measurably better than what you might find in other devices. And I would say that's largely due to the way that the Pixel has been designed, primarily as a software experience. And I will come back to that. Face lock, that's or face unlock. You can't lock something with your face, although that'd be interesting. Although that would be annoying too. Like, oh, I locked it. Dang it. God damn it. I just realized that. It was stupid. So I thought it was cool. For a second, I thought it was genius. Yeah. And then I thought about it. So the face unlock has been very fast, and more importantly, it's secure. I guess it's a level 3 security. I know nothing about security levels, but basically now you can use it with banking apps and apps that would otherwise take your thumbprint for authentication. It is a very valuable thing to have when you need it, a very convenient thing to have. And given the choice between a thumbprint or a fingerprint scanner or face unlock, at this point, I'd probably tilt, as long as you've got the security level to be able to use all the apps, I would probably tilt more towards a face unlock, given that it is, if it happened to be secure on one device or another. But but I'm fine with having both options, honestly. It's nice to be able to have both options, but it's been very, very fast. And again, I can't say how secure. I'm sure some people have figured out how to cheat it with cardboard stand-ins. I don't have a lot of stored cardboard stand-ins of myself, so I'm not too worried about it. And I don't plan on using it in those situations where, someone would, hey, Chris, what? No, Dad, you unlocked my phone. Give it back. No, it just never happens around here, unfortunately. I want it to happen, but it's not. So I made mention of the Pixel 7 Pro, 6 Pro in recent devices in the Pixel line. I haven't been impressed with the reboot of it, the Android experience that Google pushed down a couple years ago. It's a little too chonky for me. It has been more refined. I've grown more accustomed to it, but more than anything, recent Pixel generations, and this really changed for me with the 6, and then certainly the 7, and then carrying over to the 8, jank. I am very sensitive to frame drops, scrolling behavior, judder. It's bothersome. And I will tell you, the 8 Pro does no better than the 7 Pro. And I'm not saying that it's a jank fest, but I am saying that they're not optimizing. I'm telling you, they are not. Do I have definitive proof? But by gut, they don't seem to be optimizing the software experience for fluidity on newer Pixel devices as they did back in the day. They're not, the scrolling isn't as smooth. And I'm not talking about Google Play. The Google Play Store, that's a jank fest no matter which platform you use, although it is very smooth on a Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra because of optimization, software optimization. It's not the hardware. So with that, getting in and out of apps, fine as fluid, but in an app itself, if it's graphically heavy, like let's say Google News or the Google Feed, or sometimes in Google Photos, like scrolling and holding on to the scroll, it's not as smooth as the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. Sorry, not as fluid. Frames seem to drop, and I have no other way of encapsulating what it is that my eyes see, other than not a frame skip, but a drop. Like you see, like it's fluid, but you see that it's not as smooth as it could be. You know when something's buttery smooth versus like some skip, right? But it's not a heavy skip to the point where it's annoying. It's just kind of scrolling jank that you get used to. The scrolling jank on Android is far more, if I can use this term, palatable to my eyes than the scrolling jank that I see on iOS. For some reason, the velocity of the scroll it being different makes all the difference in the world to me. I hate it no matter what, but that's another thing that would keep me from switching over or switching back to the Pixel, is specifically the scrolling or performance in scrolling, the jank that I see that I don't see in other devices that I use. So that's a huge one for me, beyond the software issues that I'm mostly resolved with. And again, I will come back to that. I'm going to come back to it right now because it's the next thing in my list. You didn't have to wait that long. Huh? That's pretty good. You're thinking, oh, great, another freaking half hour. Is this guy ever going to finish? So there's the gesture hint at the bottom of the screen, right? I hate this thing. I've hated it on Apple devices. The turd bar is what I used to call it. I hate it on every device. Well, Android OEMs, except for Google, let you turn it off. You can turn off that gesture hint. And that becomes a thing where if you're in an app, like let's say Gmail, right? Let's see if it's going to get in focus. Am I getting focus? I need to set the focus better. So the background is not transparent behind that nav bar. And the issue with that is when I switch between that app and let's say the Google News app, the background is different. So it's incongruent. I'm not currently connected on the phone. So it looks different between the apps. And that looks really annoying when you're doing the app switching. And it's just annoying that you can't predict that it's going to be the same clean experience with the gesture hint. You can't turn it off. You can turn on a toggle in developer settings, but that's only for apps that are targeting the Android 15 or higher. That's not but a year away. So that's the thing. The promise and potential for making that background behind that gesture nav or the gesture hint disappear, beyond waiting for Google to never fix it. And there's over 1,000 of us who have starred that ticket or thumbs up the ticket for them to look at it to say, hey, you need to fix this because we're annoyed by it. Apps targeting Android 15 or higher will be forced to use a transparent background behind the gesture nav, which means a far more congruent experience, far more cleaner experience between apps on Android, no matter who makes the app or what that, if it's a dark background, a white background, it's just transparent. So that's something I'm very much looking forward to a year from now. And maybe by then that, it will have mitigated across most of the apps that I happen to use. They will have licked the other scrolling judder that I've seen and get beyond the other software issue. The only other glaring issue that I've found is specifically you can't make folders in the app drawer. That annoys me. I don't want to have apps on my desktop, or if you call it that, the springboard, whatever, the home screen. I like them in the app drawer. You can't add folders. And I know it's a small thing to ask. And I know you could say, oh, Chris, use a third-party launcher. Third-party launchers have kind of been broken with gesture nav for the past few revisions of Android. That keeps me from using third-party launchers. So a lot of the workarounds or the expected workarounds, I don't find myself being able to work around. I can't. And that's, again, not to take away from the general, interesting nature of the Pixel experience. In fact, I guess I'm gonna jump a point here. The AI features, really neat, right? Within photos, even though I haven't had a chance to really use them effectively because I don't take tons of shots that need to, to have the magic editor be used. Although a lot of that happens in the cloud, so I expect those features to trickle down eventually past the Google devices and specifically into Google One subscriptions, much like the previous version, or what was the Magic Eraser? The Magic Eraser tool initially was just a Pixel exclusive. Then that came out to all Google subscribers, which is great. That's the way I think that, even though I have no insight as to whether it's going to happen, I think that's what exactly going to happen to those AI features in Google Photos. Like you can go in to wallpaper and style, change, I'm just going to say more wallpapers, AI wallpaper, and you can actually build, and sorry, that's so incredibly bright. There we go. You can actually build AI wallpapers. It's a bit limited because you can't like define exactly what you want. You have to tap the bubbles to say, I want this, of that, and this. So you can choose options. It's neat, but it's well within the realm of gimmickry. I think for the average user, it's great. For a power user, it's neat, but you're going to use another app altogether if that's something that you're interested in. So I feel like the AI features are gimmicky fun, but definitely not enough to convert me to go, oh, I got to have an AI wallpaper. Oh, I got to have this. I got to have that. I don't know if I'm there. It's not enough. It's not enough of a big win for me, given all those other cuts that I had previously mentioned. That's the thing you got to remember. Don't just focus on one feature. Focus on the general experience. Because you focus on that one feature, that may be the thing that drives you. But if you're annoyed by like 70 other things, is it really worth having that one feature? For me, it's not. So I try to take these devices in totality, not necessarily for one thing or another, and think, is this something that's practical? At the time that you need to use it, yes, it's very practical, but is it something that is worth driving a $800 to $1,000 decision? I'm not so sure I'm quite sold there. The battery life's been fine, maybe not as great as other contemporary devices. A lot of people have been complaining about the heat that comes from this, especially if they're doing gaming. I don't do a lot of that. The most I've been pushing this is taking video footage. So it's been warm, but certainly not, hot. Speaking of temperature, it's got a temperature sensor. Why? I really don't. I don't think anybody can tell you. No one really knows whether or not maybe they want to get it cleared to be able to read the body temperature, to be able to take your temperature with your phone. That's kind of neat. I could see that working for other smartphones too, be able to take your temperature in your forehead. Makes sense. But not a selling point. Neat to have, not necessarily nice to have, and absolutely not a must have. Make sure I got everything on my list. And for the most part, I've been hitting all the points I wanted to make, and I'm sure there are other things to cover. Despite the Pixel not being a primary driver for me, I have zero qualms in recommending, zero reservations in recommending the Google Pixel for anybody. And I say this with extreme clarity, because some people I think are afraid of Android because they're used to iOS. And I think you're missing out on some really interesting experiences that you could have and realize, wow, iOS is really behind the times as far as a lot of this stuff goes. They're great at just about any price, a Pixel, no matter the series, no matter the, which version you're getting, because of the software. And again, speaking to, you may be getting a faster device with the Pixel 8 Pro, but you're not, I feel, going to experience that much more of a speed bump unless you're jumping from like way 5 years ago versions of any random device. But I even from the Pixel 2 XL on up, I have had no problems recommending a Pixel device, none. And that recommendation stands despite me having issues with it. The software will improve over time, certainly. I've mentioned one of the improvements coming down the pike. Not soon enough for me to switch today. And hopefully by the time that does happen, the other issues that I might be complaining about will have also been resolved. So interesting too, it's got a 120 hertz refresh rate, which is a big deal for me. I can't go lower than that on a smartphone, but you can actually lock the refresh rate. Not that I've seen that much of a difference in developer settings on the Pixel. You can't do that on other Android devices, or at least I can't do that on the S23 Ultra. But I do have it locked. Not too worried about battery life because it will drain the battery life if you have your screen locked at 120 hertz refresh rate. But I feel like that, the biggest thing that to top off the list, the things you need to know, I think you need to know that the Pixel is still a contender. I think a lot of people write the Pixel off because it's not a Samsung device or it isn't an iPhone. And Google's like that little engine that could. You need to know that the Pixel is a solid experience for the average consumer. Below average, absolutely. Above average, it depends on, what your interests, happen to be. But man, I'm telling you, once you've used it, you're like, oh, this is why people like the Pixel. It's just not enough people like the Pixel, it's sad. It's unfortunate. And I feel it may end up running the risk of destroying the Pixel in terms of longevity, because Google is known to sunset stuff. Hang on just a second, everybody. What is it? What? I can't read it, honey. What is it? I can't read it. It's oh, good night. Here, give me a hug. All right, love you. I am in the middle of it, but I couldn't read what she wrote on the screen. I'm like, what is she It's bedtime. It's bedtime for everybody, quite honestly. How long has this podcast been going? Oh my God. 4 hours. And here's the funny thing, y'all. We do this every night. Like we literally geek out, maybe not 4 hours long, but we geek out about so many random things on Twitch every single night without fail. So, you can't miss. So I've wrapped up my, I think I've wrapped up everything. I don't know if there's anything y'all wanted to add or had any questions about my Pixel experience or your Pixel experience if you had one. I know Glendon's been kind of gunning for a Pixel, at some point, but it'll happen. I'm sure it's just a matter of time. Okay, well, thank you. That's okay. I was
going to say nothing on my end.
I was going to say nothing on my end.
I've been, it's true. Yeah, no, I remember a couple buddies back in college and stuff, they were getting the Pixels and they were always touting how good they were. And at the time they were, compared to like the Note 5 and stuff like that, they were very on par. Samsung, in my opinion, is kind of taken the lead, and you've kind of noted that. But I've always seen the Pixel as not a high-end user phone, but it's not a budget phone, right? It's kind of a good in-between. If you don't need all the extra features, then it's a good device.
I used to love it, and I would love nothing more than to switch back to the Pixel. It's just that there's these sharp edges, not physically, but just these software cuts that just keep me from. I mean, I look at it, I'm like, could I do it? I'm like, yeah, no. Then I do something, and I'm like, yeah, that's not fluid. I'm out. And then I go back to the Samsung, and I'm like, hey, fluid, yay! I like this. It's fluid. It's if you have not used a Samsung device in years, not to veer off course too much, but Samsung, I would say the S23 Ultra, and I don't think this is a hardware thing. I think it's a software optimization. And this is where I go back to Google kind of falling asleep at the wheel in terms of software for the past 3 years. I don't think they're applying the same level of optimization with the Pixel device as they did in, from let's say Pixel 2, 3, 4. They were definitely, it felt like the software was like working very well with the hardware at the time. But the recent gens, I'm not sure I'm feeling it. And I guess other people have complained about that too. You could look up like Pixel 7 Pro scrolling issues or frame rate issues. People have complained about it. I'm not saying I saw those completely prevalent. It's mostly a fluid experience. It is zippy, but like I said, like in some instances, the touch, when you're touching and scrolling, and even when you touch and let go, you can see it kind of jump, which is again unfortunate because I feel it takes down the overarching quality of what the Pixel experience could otherwise be for me. Anything else to add before we wind up? Because I think even McCooter he's run out of internet. Never mind. I was going to say he ran out of commercials. We're going long when he runs out of commercials.
Oh, I think I just froze too.
Oh, you did? Oh. Wow. This is a perfect time to end.
Even the equipment's just saying we're done. No more.
We're done, but
he's just keep your browser open so it uploads. Glendon, you look very pleased. At least you're in a very yes, it's a very zen type of position. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you listen this long, I certainly appreciate it. I know we all do. We're continuing to refine the format, and hopefully you appreciate it being as information dense as it is. We certainly want to make good use of our time as well as yours. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. I know I did. So thank you again for popping over to the live stream when we're not recording the podcast. That's where we're usually hanging out 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at live.pirillo.com. I love you. I appreciate you. And at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices. Thanks, everybody in the podcast for joining Glendon, Toxic. We had Josh. We had Mystery Goat. What do I got to say at the end of it? Oh, yeah. May the force be with you, always. And done.